Morning, Adele.
I hope we'll make it through this without starting to call.
Story of that.
Good morning, Adele.
I don't necessarily. It's not, no, we can't talk about this today, but in preparation for next week, since you're here, I'm hoping to save your trip to Tracy Robbins to
Oh,
pick up a copy. This issue with we'll have to touch on it again on Monday. For one of the things that we had talked about the a representation made by the architect. Correct. Well, both of these have gone out, so it's a public record already. But we're gonna talk about it on Monday as you asked me last time. I'm gonna report back to you, and I just happened to see you, so I wanted to.
This is good.
Yeah.
Give a chance to kind of look, study it.
Yes. I also, like, there's a list today. So much.
Thank you all for being quiet. It's 8:30. It is the 22nd day of November, 2024. It's 8:30 a.m. and we are at the Aquarium Education Center located at 706 Navigation Circle, Rockport, Texas, 78382. And I call this workshop to order. Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney,
Here.
Commissioner Castaway,
Here.
Commissioner Russo. Here. Commissioner Dubnik
Here.
and Judge Garza.
Here, we've got a full court. We're gonna move on to citizens be heard. We've got a lot on here and first up, some of these, so I got a lot on here and I think some are not gonna be here, but I just want to say I got one for Brett Bolting. Is he here? Oh, would you like to come up? Okay, so he's in favor. Right? Okay. Nancy Bolting, would you like to come up? All right. You're in favor. Matt Hesley. He's not here and he probably don't even have to look. He's in favor, I'm pretty sure. Let's see. Vedente, will you be attending? No. He supports it. Brad, Frederick.
What do you want me to judge? Right.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Good morning, Judge Court. Here, Brad Regret, 1053 North Allen Street, Rockport, Texas. As y'all know, I sit on City Council and I'm here to speak on behalf of the City of Rockport and in support of this tier. As y'all know, we held 6 workshops and open meetings between council meetings, workshops, including those with the downtown merchants, which was successful, and we gathered a lot of support for this here for the city. And for the commissioners, I just want y'all to know that we passed it unanimously. It went pretty good. And this is just another opportunity for the city, the county, and potentially Nav District to be able to work together on another project that supports our community. And I think it's very, very important for y'all to understand. That's all I have to say. Keep it short and sweet. Thank you.
Thank you. Kim Hesley. All right, she's not here. She's for it. John Heffron. He's not here. Or are you? I heard so. John's not here. Heffron. All right. And he's for it. Stephen Levy. But I know he has a letter here. It said John was going to read this in. Did you want to read it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I got a copy here.
Lady who actually the owner is Levy Dykeman Architectural Firm regarding Rockport's downtown repairs, to whom it may concern. My name is Stephen Levy. I was born and raised in Rockport, Texas. I currently own property in Rockport. I split my time between Rockport and Austin, with most of my time spent in Rockport. I own a local architectural firm and will have several local projects in Rockport. Since owning my firm, we have regularly contributed to Rockport Fulton, either with local donations, painting murals or community projects, or significant donations in time, money, food, and tools after Hurricane Harvey. I am a big believer of I live here and I give here. In addition to contributing to our community as mentioned above, I'm a conservationist. I believe with the support of this TERS that Rockport will grow in a direction that is more sustainable for our natural environment, city resources, and residents. It goes without saying that Rockport is a very special community to me and my family. I have enjoyed watching Rockport grow throughout my life. I am in full support of the TERS for downtown Rockport. I've been in Rockport all week and normally would attend this meeting in full support of the TERS. However, I had a prior commitment that precluded me from attending in person. Sincerely, Levy Documents, Stephen Levy.
Thank you, sir. Jack Wright.
Morning, Judge.
Morning.
Sure, the rest of y'all know me, right? My name is Jack Wright. I've lived at 418 Cherry Hills for 28 years. Wasn't born here, but I got here as quickly as I could. I've attended all the meetings that were held with respect to the city and the creation of the tax increment reinvestment zone. As a retired banker, I like to study things from a concern, potential issue standpoint. And I had a couple of concerns. As you know, or if you don't know, there is a former fuel tank on the property. The fuel tank itself no longer exists, but the contaminated fuel does. There are creosote posts that form the bulkhead, equally as contaminated. Well, one of the things that my research led me to find out is that the creation of a TERS requires one of two things, or both things. One is a blighted area, which this might fit that definition, but most importantly, it has environmental concerns. The TERS has to have one of those two or both in order to be created. So, one of the interesting things, really interesting things, is when I read this before the city council, there were a little less than 500 TERS in the state of Texas. There are 254 counties. As of last night, there are 547 TERSs that exist in the state of Texas. That's more than a 2-to-1 per county. And that's a 50 increase from when I read this before the city council. It is the most important method to be able to create things where things need to be created. Cities and counties can't do this without TERS, quite frankly. I support it, and I hope that you do too. And as I close with the city council comment, I think it should be one of the easiest decisions in the history of decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard Dias here. So he is for it. Laura and David Denham. Laura, Dave here.
Thanks, here. I'm here.
You want to come up and speak?
No, I'm for it.
Okay, all right.
Big time for that.
Patrick Rios. All right, he is in full support. I'm all struggling. Golly. I know. This is an email, it's not a form. And we'll get to John, do you want to speak? All right, come on up.
Oh, you here.
Need the courthouse.
Yeah, he did. All right. Read me that. That'd be a little-
Just lay that thing over. Yes. Oh,
Okay, my name is John Jackson. I live here at 312 Olympic Drive. I'm the 5th generation native of Rockport. And plan to stay here for the rest of my life as well as my 3 kids. So we'll be probably 7 generations while I'm still alive. I totally support the county becoming a full participant in the city TERS, which has been established. And though the Embry's proposed Harborfoot development has been the catalyst for its formation, this TERS has significant merit on its own, and that it will provide much needed infrastructure improvements to be wholly funded upfront by the Embry's with no tax to the city or county taxpayers. And upon completion of the infrastructure improvements, ownership will be transferred to the city. So it clearly puts all the risk on the developers. If they don't deliver, there will be no reimbursements. Recently, I have seen social media content posted publicly claiming that the local taxpayers would be helping the developer build and sell condos and townhomes. That is very misleading and inaccurate because state law says that private things like condos and townhomes are expressly not even eligible for TERS reimbursements. Another thing I heard at the last workshop was that there already existed a development agreement, but there is no development agreement. Having said all of that, the proposed development at the Harborfront will undoubtedly transform the entire downtown area in the TERS footprint by providing much needed improvements in streets, drainage, over 3,000 feet of bulkhead, and a boardwalk which will finally provide Harborfront access to the public for the first time in over 100 years. And then when you add a 2-acre public park, venues for entertainment, music and art and family activities, it will enhance the quality of life, not only for on-site owners and renters, but for everyone in the county and the city. And then on top of that, it will increase tourism here, and the resulting commercial sales that will occur will raise significant sales tax revenues, which will be provided to both the city and the county. And finally, it will provide many full and part-time jobs, both pre and post-construction. It has been said that other developers have passed on developing the Harborfront for various reasons. Most, if not all, because of the significant cost of infrastructure. I know of at least 4 proposed developers have shown interest and know that the one just prior to the Embreeze also faded away, apparently, when he was not successful in starting a TIF, which in turn most likely limited his ability to raise capital from investors. And it would not surprise me that others have failed for the similar reasons. Simply put, the TERS is a very effective performance-based economic tool, which has been used in, well, I thought it was 460, it's 547 now, cities across the state. And in our case, it will result in more commercial property tax revenue, which is currently heavily on the backs of local residential properties. Respectfully submitted. Thank you.
Cody Stewart.
Good morning, Judge, Commissioners. Appreciate the chance to speak. I'm considering myself 3rd generation Rockport. My grandparents got here in the late 60s and was one of the first home builders on Keel Lake Road. They did condo development here on Tiki Beach on Fulton Beach Road in the 80s. Lots of houses in the country club, and now I'm here as a real estate professional, and I do aviation development and some other projects in Rockport. So after looking at the tours and what's being proposed, I am absolutely for it. I think this is common sense development for Rockport that's been needed for a long time. I was hoping that downtown would get remodeled after Harvey, but we still have drainage issues, we still have infrastructure issues, and this is a common sense avenue to fix those items. Plus, we have, you know, one of the first class art centers that needs walkability, and this just promotes downtown. So I'm for it. I hope y'all are too, and I'm happy to see Rockport grow in a direction that's positive for the whole community. So that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you. Karen Mello. Morning.
Morning, Jeff, Commissioners. Appreciate the opportunity to speak. I'm Karen Mella. My husband and I live at 207 Royal Oaks in Rockport Country Club. We own and pay taxes on several properties in Aransas County, and we are both 100% in favor of the TERS. A few points I'd like you to please consider when you are making your decision. Mr. James, the TERS expert consultant hired by the city, has made several presentations to Commissioners Court, and I was in attendance at 2 of those. He offered and provided factual, detailed information on how the TERS works. He shared that there are over 500 TERS in effect in the state of Texas. This is not a new concept. It's a proven concept that will allow a community to adopt and allow for quality controlled development and economic growth. The upfront financial burden and risk is on the developer to remediate, prepare the development site, all the infrastructure. The taxpayers are not handing over a stack of money up front for that developer to do the work. It's on the developer. A development under the TERS would generate additional tax dollars above the base rate. The participating entities could use those additional funds anywhere in the county to dedicate to improvements that otherwise there may not be funds for. It's not just monies to be used in the TERS. These funds are funds that you would not have if this development did not occur. This particular development has over 60% of public space. I attended an economic development corporation meeting the other day, and one of the big needs that we have in this community are things for families. And this would allow public space, parks, the boardwalk, splash parks. It's not just a wall of condos that would be going up under this particular development. All the entities will have a say. You'll have a seat at the TERS board. You will continue to have input and guide development. You have the power to pass this much needed tool to stimulate quality growth for our existing downtown businesses, new businesses, but mostly for our residents. Please do this for us. We need this. It is a no-brainer. It's a win-win situation for all of us. Your participation is critical to make this a success. So I thank you for your questions.
Thank you. Chair, Mr. Brundrett.
Move this just a little bit. I'm bringing it back. Do we have a buzzer? I was looking for the timer. I didn't see it.
I looked up.
Oh, I shouldn't have said anything now.
Got it.
I'm Jerry Brundrett, and I'm speaking not as an elected official, but as a citizen of this county. My family, like Johnny's, has been around quite a while, and I have lived for the most part my entire 76 years of my life here, and most of it within probably a mile of the Harborfront area. Right now, I live just about 4 blocks off the Harborfront. I'm totally in support of this TERS, but maybe for more of a focused view than what a lot of people spoke on. I've sort of highlighted 3 areas in particular, and some of it's been mentioned, and one of them is to provide funding for public infrastructure. I've heard some of the numbers of the infrastructure that's going to have to be put in order to develop that property, and just the bulkheading alone could run anywhere from $8 to $15 million. And it's basically going to be turned over as public infrastructure, but it's needed not only for the development, but for the harbor also, because we don't have an adequate bulkhead along there. Bulkheading and drainage to enhance the harbor and waterfront for marine commerce and transportation. This whole community, this county was founded on the basis of marine commerce and marine transportation, the coming and going from the sea to the shore. It's always been, that's the history of this community. It will also, number 2, allow for public access to a portion of the harbor that is unsafe and inaccessible right now. And one of the surveys that were taken said that the public wanted access to the harbor. They want to be able to walk down along the harbor, and we need to allow that access. The third thing that I think is probably one of the most important ones, that it will be a catalyst for future development in the historic downtown district and recreate our past. Our past was of fine hotels, some of the largest hotels in the South. And that was our past, and we want to recreate that past for our future and have residential areas and hotels and businesses more in the downtown area. I want to point out something. Last time the buzzer got me, and I hope I can get this out. This is not a first for tax-funded public infrastructure. In 1920, right after the 1919 storm, our waterfront was devastated. And the state legislature passed House Bill 91, which was passed to return all of Aransas County state tax money back to the city of Rockport. Actually was the administrator of it for 20 years. And it was to fund the first wooden bulkhead along the harbor. Part of that old bulkhead still remains, but this is all the way back in 1920. State tax revenue was returned to Aransas County for that purpose. The bulkhead only cost $18,000, but we didn't have $18,000. So a bond issue was passed and that retired it. I know this is a bold decision you're being asked to make. It means giving up the present revenues for future gain. It means having a vision of what we can be and not just what we are now. And most of all, it means venturing into the great unknown. The history of this great county has always been about men and women who were not afraid to venture into the great unknown of the sea in boats made of wood. You see, they had nerves of steel and their eyes on the horizon. In closing, I would like to say the winds are fair, the tide is falling, and you are being invited to come aboard our future. The decision is yours. Please join us as we sail into the future and support the TERS. Thank you.
Thank you. Katie Jackson.
Morning, Judge Commissioners, and everyone present. My name is Katie Jackson. I reside at 2205 Monkey Road. And I am here speaking for the TERS on behalf of the Aransas County Republican Party, of which I am its chair. The Republican Party is led by President-elect Donald Trump, believes in economic development in all its forms. The Rockport Marina Village project would create economic development, which Mrs. Embry will discuss in her remarks. Another very important concept of the Republican Party is the rule of law. In this instance, Texas Tax Code Chapter 311 is the law to be followed. From the beginning through approval of the city ordinance 1946, the law has been followed meticulously. Excuse me, as we have seen through this election cycle, social media is where misinformation, disinformation, and complete information and various other distractions are used to try and manipulate the public to draw the conclusions that the spreader thinks will bring the public to their side of the issue. All else fails, the spreader will attack the main people involved, their backers, and their supporters. This is a tactic of the Democrat Party. With respect to the TERS already approved by the City Council and currently being considered by this court, no lies or misinformation have been spread by those in support of the TERS, including the initiators. Referenced information is used, the law is followed, complete information is presented, and this is how Republicans operate. As we have seen in local government decisions since Harvey, the loudest voices in government meetings and social media usually do not provide enough information for others to make a sound decision. For a more detailed discussion of the facts and issues in Harvey, feel free to discuss these with me at your convenience. By law, a TERS can only be used for, direct quote from Chapter 311, costs of public works, public improvements, programs, or other projects benefiting the zone, plus other costs incidental to these expenditures and obligations. By law, a TERS cannot be used for private development. Second, a TERS, by law, is of no risk to the county or other political subdivisions involved. The TERS is a tool showing there is backing within the community for the project, so the developers can seek financial backing for the allowable public infrastructure. Third, administrative costs incurred by a political entity are reimbursed by the TERS fund by law. Please tell me where the county is losing money and how any taxpayer is paying for this. Fourth, original referenceable definitions are a necessary part of proper functioning of government. A change in definition is a hallmark of the Democrat Party. I would like to reinforce my information came from original sources. I read Texas Tax Code 311 with all other relevant tax codes. I did my research. This is what Republicans do. I would like to remind the members of this court, they ran for office as Republicans and they should act that way. Do not rely on one person for information. Complete information is required for any proper decision to be made. Republicans are watching and taking note of your actions. Please support the TERS. It's a win-win. It is absolutely no risk to a government entity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Phil Salimi.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Phil Salami. My business address is 2631 Highway 35 North, and I'm here speaking on behalf of the business community. Growth is the mother's milk of business, and there are people here that are anti-growth in this community, as we all know. Now, I find it very unique. I've yet to hear anybody in opposition come to this podium today, but there are those out there that do. And I am not saying that a business owner's vote or influence should be more than the other citizens of the community. However, I think in your consideration, you should consider the risk people are taking in the community. And the business owners in this community, who I think are largely in favor of this, have the most capital at risk, for sure. Okay. They're also the largest part of the tax base individually, by and large. Okay. So let me say this, the malcontents that are opposed to this really are anti-growth. They're really not saying that they like to say that they're in favor of growth, but they don't want any taxpayer contribution. Well, we know there's no taxpayer contribution to this really. And they're using that as a smokescreen to say, don't do anything in my community. I've also noticed anecdotally, I don't know this for sure, but I think they have the least at risk as far as property owners, business owners, jobs, and so on and so forth. We that carry the water around here are largely in favor of this, and I think that needs large consideration. Okay. I really didn't come here with prepared remarks. I will send you a letter explaining this in more detail, but I want you to know that the businesses in this community need growth. They need this project, and they need other projects going forward. We're going to have to grow. That is not, cities and counties are either growing or they're dying. There's no in between. Don't put us in that position to be dying. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Donnie Garcia. Oh, there you go.
Thank you, guys. Judge. My name is Donnie Garcia. I live at 419 Olympic in the Country Club. And I just want to let everyone know that I'm actually property owner in the TERS. Big deal for me. I'm also vice president of the Rockport Cultural Arts District and been in that position for 3 years. And I just wanted to say that, by the way, that all the board members there approve the TERS. It's including the president of the Downtown Merchants Association. That's not what my presentation is about, but I did want to say that I am a realtor at Spears & Co. and have been for the last 6 years. And the last time I was speaking in front of the court here was back in 2011. Mr. Brundrett and me and Brett Bone, we brought the McCombs family bought the reserve at St. Charles Bay, and I was with them for 11 years. And we developed the reserve at St. Charles Bay, which at the present time is, $100 million worth of tax revenue so far. They're only halfway through. We left, my wife and I left after the storm and decided to go into general real estate and development. The latest development that we've done was the Ocean Reef Cottages, which is in between Bahia Bay and Palm Harbor. We were sold out. We did 89 homes. That's over 25 million in tax revenue. And that's really what I want to talk about is developer is my game. And I just want to I just want to do a little timeline and a process of what would happen if the county, the NAV district, and the city got all back in the sandbox and started playing well together, and we did the TERS. If you do that, the developer has all the risk, just like these other guys have talked about. Developer has all the risk. They're the ones that put up the money. Let's just say that you're all in, and we go to now the developers put this development plan together, everything that they need to come to the TIRS board. The TIRS board is very, very important. Let's just say there's 7 members. You've got 1, maybe 2 members that are your folks that are part of the board, and the developers are going to have to come up with $500,000 to come up with a development plan and a contract. And then it goes to the TIRS board. And first of all, it's got to go through the Corps of Engineers, the GLO, TCEQ. Everybody's got to approve it. Then it's got to go to the TIRS board. It's going to go back and forth with comments, all this kind of stuff. They're going to come to y'all. They're going to say, hey, look at this, look at this. Finally, let's just say it gets approved. It's got to go through city council. It's got to go through planning and zoning. It's got to, they put $500,000 worth of money into getting this civil engineered, lawyered up contract, all that stuff. And now they have to build the infrastructure. The only thing that's going to cost anybody is the developer. They're at all risk. They've got to put, let's just say it's $40 million worth of infrastructure. They've got to go back. They've got to go back to the trunk lines. They got to get the LUEs that they need. They're going to need, the city's going to require them to go all the way back to the sewer line to get water and sewer for the entire tiers, which is all of downtown. We're trying to put the bathrooms in with Warren Hassinger. The city can't even find, the sewer line. It's not there. Billy Dick and Mike Henry, you remember them. They just band-aided everything. All that needs to be updated, and it will be through the TIRS. It's that simple. Everybody in the TIRS will be upgraded. Everything will happen. They'll spend all the money. Nothing happens. No 60-40 split until the county appraiser goes out and says, okay, that building is worth $5 million. That building's worth $10 million. Everything above the base, that's when everything starts. That's 3 or 4 years down the road. That's when everything really starts. The developer not only has to put in the $40 million for all the infrastructure, then they got to build their buildings. They got to build the condos. They got to build the commercial buildings. And until that appraiser comes out and says, that's finished, that's ready to go, that's worth this much, that's when the 60-40 split starts. That's it. That's how it's basically going to happen. So I just wanted to make sure you guys kind of understood that. The only 3 things I want to leave here with is the developer has all the risks. I think you already know that. The tax splits don't happen until everything is complete. And the final thing is, bottom line is, we can't do it without y'all. We need the county to be invested in this. We need the navigation district in. We need the city, which is already in. We need all 3 to do this, and we hope you make that decision for the TIRS. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary Zellers.
Gary Zellers, 11 Westlake Drive in Lamar.
Morning.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this morning. I believe that the city of Rockport, the Chamber of Commerce, the developers, many of the landowners and local businesses in the area are basically saying to the taxpayer, let them eat cake. I think that they all stand a lot to gain from this, potentially down the road on the backs of the taxpayers. I think we felt similar to this back during the construction or the bond on the courthouse. Same sort of thing went down. You know, the voters voted against the bond. Well, some way or another, they found a way to make it happen. I've heard many comments here this morning about how the businesses in the area are the ones that carry the water. Well, I think if the residents of Aransas County left, I think you'd feel or see who's carrying the water around here. Someone also talked about the history, bringing back the history of Aransas County. You know, it was also a KKK complex here in the 30s or 40s. I don't think we want to see that either. All I'm saying is that I would like to ask the county to not get in bed with the city on this. I mean, I think if that's what they want to do, let them do it. But as just a resident of the county and not a citizen of Rockport, I don't agree with it at all. I think at a minimum, if the county agrees that they must go forward and support the city in this, that we ask for a bond in at least 1 or 1.5 times the total cost of the project to be funded by the developer, that in the case of a default, that they're still on the hook for that infrastructure that they promised to put in. That's all I have to say.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Deborah Stevens.
Good morning, Judge Garza.
Morning.
Commissioners. I'm Deborah Stevens, 2005 Baywood Drive. I moved to Rockport from a rapidly growing hill country small town and told myself I would never get involved in politics again. We had uncontrolled growth going on all around us and a small group of very loud citizens who objected to virtually everything. Obviously, remaining uninvolved has not worked out as I planned, but fortunately, this will only be the second time I've spoken to a governmental body. I only speak if I feel confident that I've studied the issue thoroughly, and the amount of disinformation on social media is intolerable. So that's what brings me here today. As you know, I'm the quiet person that sits in the back of the room and have a lot of county court meetings. And last week I heard a person speaking during Citizens to be Heard claiming that no one has seen a development agreement and plans for TERS. He asked, are there going to be condos? Then he emphasized, nobody knows. I knew there would be condos, and I had seen the plan at a public meeting a couple of months prior and thought there had been articles in the pilot. I then confirmed that. When Scarlett was hungry, I looked over at her and I'm like, what do you mean there's no plan? You know, and so she shared with me that they just created a website. She gave me what the address of that website was, and I went to it, and then I shared that on social media. Since then, I've done more research on TERS and discovered that the actual final development plans are done after the TERS is created and a board is assigned. What I found most amusing of all the misinformation on social media is that the Bass family supports Democrats, and that would be a reason to not support the TERS. Through just a little bit of research, I learned the Bass family is 4 brothers, 3 of which are strong supporters of the Republican candidates in charter schools. My opinion of TERS has nothing to do with the current owner's political party. I base my opinion on the law surrounding TERS and the economic opportunity for this county. As an aside, Judge, I contacted you about having someone on the agenda to speak. You gave me a link to look back at a past meeting, and that was your rationale. And, you know, it looked to me in the video that it was 2 citizens who had been involved in the EDC and had been involved in the recovery plan and only spoke. They did not provide a full-blown presentation. And they spoke right before or right after Citizens to be Heard. Nobody got up until they spoke, but it was during that segment of the meeting. So I don't see a correlation between the 2. I strongly support this TERS, believe the project will benefit all residents of Aransas County, and I encourage that a vote on joining TERS be done soon. Now that the election is over, I look forward to resuming my attending and monitoring of what has happened at Commissioner's Court. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew Kane.
Thank you, Judge, Commissioners. Andrew Kane. I come to you today and I feel like I represent a large amount of people you're not going to hear from today. They're the ones that are out there fixing your breakfasts and mowing your yards and struggling every day and working in this county and trying to survive. Who you are hearing from today is business owners, landowners, architects, survey engineering firms, builders, realtors, other people that have gotten local tax abatements. I am a business owner in this county. I'm one of the larger ones. I own a multi-million-dollar property, pay a lot of taxes in this county. I'm also a developer. There's no one in this room that's developed $300 million worth of projects in the last 10 years. This week I pulled the trigger on a $2 million and a $6 million project. So I do have background in development and I am a local business owner. But that said, TERS is not a dirty word. There's a proper place for it. If an area is falling towards falling inwards and properties are being abandoned, boarded up, property values are decreasing, health concerns arise, and businesses are moving out of that area into other areas of the county, that's what a TERS is designed for. Downtown Rockport and its premier waterfront property is not one of them. We just invested $60 million in taxpayer money to build a downtown anchor project. It was located downtown versus other more feasible areas in this county for the sole purpose of generating growth in the downtown area. You would hear in a developer's presentation, quote, due to the encumbrances preventing development of this property, development has not and will not happen on its own, end quote. We have all heard this property sat vacant for 35 years. It was not until 2015, though, that the land swap created continual boundaries versus mixed plots that were not continuous. It is private property, and just like every vacant lot in this county, just because it hasn't developed yet, doesn't mean it's blighted. Within just a few years after the land swap, this developer began due diligence. The developer, Scarlett Embry, was quoted in the newspaper. If our planned development doesn't happen, other developers will try to get a hold of the property. Will most likely build a high-density residential waterfront development, which would waste the opportunity this property presents for the community and the city, end quote. In reality, this development is about infrastructure and bulkheads for a 262 luxury waterfront townhomes and condos. Don't let a few shops and retail distract you from what their plans are. It is not blighted, in my opinion, and no one has presented anything to prove it is or the cost to clean it up. It's not $36 million. Development's costs are normal. Replacing the sandy soil to build a buildable foundation with select fill is normal. Last year in Portland, we built a 3-story climate controlled storage facility. To get a good foundation for the 3-story structure, we had to dig out 6 feet of sand and fill back in with select fill soil. That's every development. That is what will be required for the 262 3-story condo buildings. We brought infrastructure in as well. We do it at all of our developments. And of course, turn them over to the city. Al Hogan builds roads, sidewalks, lighting, brings in utilities for every subdivision he does. Then he turns that infrastructure over to the city. Does Al Hogan get 60% of all the future property taxes paid on those homes he sells, kicked back to him for 25 years? So why would this developer on their 262 condos get that? Be careful what precedent you're setting here. No RFPs, requests for proposals. The city consultant mentioned here at the last workshop that if a TERS decides to do some work, then transparency steps in and with dealing with public funds. The TERS would have to get RFPs. He also said with this TERS, because this is not the TERS doing the work, but a developer reimbursement, there will be no RFPs required by the developer. Tens of millions of dollars of public funds will be spent with no RFP process. That is ripe for corruption of public funds, and it's happened in TERS. You have a duty to the taxpayers to be a better steward of the public's money than this. I will leave you with the single fact that should alone require you to give a no vote on joining the city of Rockport's TERS. That is correct. This is the city of Rockport's TERS, not yours. Once you join and commit tens of millions of dollars of TERS, this county will not get an opportunity to vote yes or no on a project, a developer agreement, or how the county taxpayers' money is spent by the city. You cannot approve or disapprove of the TERS going out for a bond to get upfront money. Only city council gets that vote. You are here to pay and will take and will make no decisions going forward. You have a duty to the taxpayers to be a better steward of the public's money than this. I do not object to this development at all. I like it and think it is an extremely attractive investment. I would invest in. I just object to public funds being spent on this private property for a private investment that will support 262 luxury waterfront condos. Thank you.
Thank you. Alex Harris. Alex Harris. Morning, Mr. Harris.
Morning, Judge. Commissioners, thank you for allowing me to speak. My company and my investors also own property in Fulton next to the Old Cottage subdivision, 16 acres. That'll be our future development. I'm a businessman in Corpus Christi, grew up in Corpus Christi, went to A&I, came back to Corpus Christi, got my master's during Corpus Christi State University at the time. What I wanted to, and what I've gotten before you today is I was involved in a project when I was chairman of the board of Corpus Christi called Packery Channel. And as you can see on the front page, Packery Channel was a cut through. We actually opened the back bay and the channels of Lake Padre for fresh water and access. It was a roughly $16 million to build and another $8 or $10 million in maintenance and to take care of it. So in order to get it done, we passed the TERS number 2. And when we passed the TERS number 2, as on the front page, we had a tax base in that area of $85 million. Now, over the last 21 years, and I hate to say I've been involved in it that long, but I have been. I've been there and I've built over 360 townhomes and condos in that TERS. And I've helped build that tax base to $624 million. It would not have been done if it wasn't for the TERS, period. It had been owned by Westinghouse and foreclosed by Westinghouse, and nothing was happening out there until we were able to put Packery Channel in. On the second page, I went to Peter Zanoni, our city manager, and I said, Peter, can you ask one of the staff to prepare for me and kind of tell what's happened on the TERS, not from Alex Harris or the Business Alliance, but from aspect of the city. So they said that third page captured value. And that's when they showed on there that the tax value started at $25 million and it grew to $620 million, 628% growth. What does that mean for our taxing authorities? Well, the TERS collected $4 million to keep operating. The Flower Bluff School District went from $657,000 to $4.1 million in revenue. Del Mar went from $224,000 to $1.4 million in revenue, just in the increased tax base. Now, the New Angeles County City, they didn't collect because they kept all the money back in there to pay for all the bonds, do the activities. And I said, note on the next page where it says project, they used their money to do $28 million worth of projects. The administrative fee on Packery Channel, the monitoring of it, the dredging of it, parking lot, emergency repair, the mobility study. And basically what that was is they wanted a new bridge crossing over Park Road 22. So they were able to get $4 million plus roughly $5 million. So now we talk about the future and what we go for from there. So, and Judge, I told you I would bring a real life study. And this is not, I mean, this is what's going to happen. What actually happened over the last 20 years. But since that time period, we've had 2 major developments come forward and talk to us. They're not talking anymore. And that's that Lake Padre development with that picture. They have put all the infrastructure in, all the streets are in, all the utilities are in, all the bulkheads done. They didn't talk about it, they came and did it. And so if you look at 102 acres roughly, and you talk about what that could be, a couple of $100 million in development. And then along comes another group, and they kind of got the property secondhand. They financed Sluderbond. Well, Sluderbond didn't make it. They foreclosed the property. They took it back. They could have just closed it up. They could have just left the sand and said, you know what, we'll find somebody else to do it. IBC Bank, through their development company, Diamond Beach Development, they're a $2 billion bank. They made $550 million profit last year. They said, no, that's not what we want to do. We want to dredge canals. We're going to create an ability and put this waterfront in and all the bulkheading in. And we're going to announce a project worth $800 million. Now, they're not talking about doing it. Those streets are in, the bulkhead's finished, all the waterways are done. They came and did it. And you know why they did it? Because we did TERS number 2, because we created Tackling Channel. We did the infrastructure to get it started. So I'm just telling you, it works, Judge, Commissioners, it worked. This is a real life study that actually has happened over the last 24 years. The future is so bright, and they start looking at what potential they can get by the additional tax base. It's so big that I was afraid to put the number in there. So instead, I know what he wrote in there, the best is yet to come. Because with the $800 million development and the $200 million development, and I'm continuing to build over there. I've got 2 projects going right now in Port Aransas. They're 2 35-acre developments worth about $250 million. We continue to make our city better by developing it. But we did it because the TERS created it. Without TERS number 2, this would not have happened. So I hope you're able to support it. I hope you can see that this is not subsidy, but actually they come back and they put the real money down. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Harris. Joseph Lane.
Actually, I'm here for a backslide. All of my questions are being answered.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Yes. Kathy Kane.
Thank you. All right, so Kathy Kane, woman on Boardwalk in the county. So I'm commenting today as a county resident with the privilege of being in your seats but at a town level. So I understand that this is a very difficult decision. I am not in support of the county encumbering future ad valorem and sales tax revenue for that 25 years to benefit one small portion of this county. As my brother's going to speak, I think it's a great development. I just don't think we as county residents should be paying for a city project. My reasons are several. Emergencies happen. We're well aware of that with Harvey. If you have the general fund not in the natural rise in values year over year, we may not have the funds to respond to needs outside of this one very small area. Why put all of our money into a fund which can only be used to reimburse future developers for those expenses in that one area? Developers fund their development. As my brother Andrew said, why is the county interested in paying for this development's preparation and infrastructure expenses? If it makes sense for them to do this development, they will do it. This sets a precedent that we can't afford in this county. Every future developer will ask for this same benefit. Probably need to find out the land that he owns because I think it's near mine. So obviously that's something that, if we set it now, then every developer should come to you and say, hey, where's my free money? Because it is free money to them. The city of Rockport assets. This is something that, why is the county wanting to pay for something that is within the city? It is not your job or responsibility to put in roads and infrastructure bulkheads within the city. That belongs to the city. The city wants to do this, then they are the ones that should be funding this, not the county. There's still so many unknowns and changes that are being brought forward in this development. And the tours should happen first with the development afterwards, but unfortunately, these have been coupled from the very beginning. The city and mayor supported this plan as a vehicle to take burden off of taxpayers, narrowing the residential to commercial ratio. But what I've seen so far is that this adds additional residents with limited commercial, which doesn't change the ratio. And that is continuing this homeowner burden that we have for the next 25 years. For these reasons and others, I do not support the county entering into this.
Thank you. And I forgot.
Well, you weren't done yet, so I was gonna.
I was gonna let you go first, but we've got one from Christy Rutledge, Commissioner Rousseau is going to read into the record.
Christy Rutledge, 1411 Dana Drive in Rockport. She is in my precinct. Hello, Pat. I can't be at the workshop on Friday because I'll be in Austin advocating for legislation. I'm 100% supportive of the TERS. I believe this TERS is very well planned and the waterfront development will be awesome. I'm very excited that there is an estimated 300 new jobs and 100 high school internships for the Rockport Marina Village development. We need these jobs and these internships for our students is a great addition to the project. I hope you support the tours and ask you vote in favor of the maximum participation from the county. I've listened to debates from Andrew Kane and Patrick Kane. I do not agree with many of the statements Andrew is making. I've seen many statements where he is misleading people and using scare tactics just to get more signatures on his petition. I do not agree with Patrick's concerns about cost of maintenance. The city is aware of the cost of maintenance. I believe Patrick should put forward solutions versus using talking points to claim he's been deprived of information and therefore the development must not be approved and the county should not participate in the TERS. I've heard Andrew's concerns that county commissioners won't get to vote on anything in the TERS. Maybe you should be appointed as our representative from the county on the TERS board. You'd be a strong, reasonable voice and a watchful eye on the TERS. I called the Texas Controller's office this week to get a better understanding of the process. And I spoke to the person who gave a 2024 webinar about the TERS. As an aside, it's a 36-minute webinar, which I viewed yesterday, but could not be shown during her 5 minutes. After talking with the Texas Controller, I feel good about the county's participation in the TERS because there is flexibility. The county can participate in the city's TERS for any length of time at any rate and can renew or amend their rate after expiration of the initial term. I recommend a big investment up early from the county to help get public infrastructure improvements completed as quickly as possible. I feel strongly everyone in the entire county will benefit from development of the Rockport waterfront and that our quality of life will greatly increase. Thank you. Best regards, Christy.
All right. Jeff Shostrom.
Oh. I was going to.
Yes.
Okay.
I think this is an IQ test for a petite guy like me to make sure I don't knock over here. Good morning. Judge, Commissioners, thank you for this opportunity. There are multiple points that I would love to go over, but in light of brevity in 3 minutes, I thought I'd just pick 3 or 4. And to start this, I'm not an expert. All I bring to you is 35 years of professional economic development background in 4 different areas. 8 years in coordinating state and federal economic development finance programs for the 13-county region around the Houston area through the Houston-Galveston Area Council. And over 20 years in my immediately prior life, where I was involved with 4 tax increment reinvestment zones. 2 were developer initiated, 2 were community city initiated. And those are different animals, same concept, but they're implemented, managed, and operated differently. First point, and with credit to Mr. King, he, in his presentation that was attached for today, had a slide on TERSs aren't without risk. And I would be the first to say correct. But every TERS is different. And for example, in the Baker Institute assessment that he included, that assessment on TERS was specific to Houston. We ain't Houston. In Houston, they have 28 tax increment reinvestment zones within the city alone. The majority of those TERSs, the city participated at 100%. The majority of those TERSs, the school district participated in those TERSs with their tax dollars. They went through the different component pieces, and if you actually look at it, their common conclusion was that the city put poor oversight on the administration and the ongoing management of those TERSs, and a number of scandals broke out because of unscrupulous members that went on those TERS boards, and because there wasn't transparency and openness in terms of managing those churches, problems develop. And I say that humbly because after Hurricane Ike, I was honored to be appointed by the governor to a commission on recovery following the hurricane. One of the authors of this assessment served on that board with me. I greatly value his insight. He has a voice in the Houston region, and he made a lot of good points. However, I also would say that when we look at this, Rockport is different. Aransas County is different. When we talk about the risks, there also were references to Odessa. Odessa is one of those typical predictable areas where you had a change in political will because of transitions and turnovers, and they closed that TERS because philosophically, the leaders didn't agree with it. There was reference to Austin and the TERS that was overturned in the courts because it was done inappropriately. If you actually look at that TERS, it needed to be overturned. The geographic area of that tax increment reinvestment zone was growing exponentially before they ever even adopted the TERS. That is not an area where TERS makes sense. In contrast, and to the city's credit, what we're looking at here, what they've approved, is a geographic area that has an existing base value of $29 million that is frozen. Instead of the 100%, they've agreed to a 60-40 split so that there's residual money. As the TERS grows, the city's general fund grows, enhancing their ability to do more for the area of the toll. They've agreed that they're not going to put hot taxes, sales taxes as increment into the zone. In Houston, they did. They initiated a TERS that city initiated, not developer initiated, which gives you more control, more flexibility, and a greater opportunity for transparency. They've created a TERS where the TERS board will make recommendations, but all decisions will come back to the city council. And I'm sorry, over 30 years, we can play the game that you have no voice, but this is not going to develop in a vacuum. And I can guarantee you that you're going to be hearing about it every month when they have board meetings. You'll be able to see it when their agendas are posted publicly. And there's a lot more that goes into this than just a unilateral clandestine conspiracy that the city's going to overrun everything and you're going to be sitting on the curbs watching it happen. Won't happen. Couple of other points quickly. When we say that TERSs aren't without risk, I would argue to you, maintaining the status quo and hoping that organically growth is going to happen by itself also brings with it significant risk. You all know better than most, with your incremental tax-based growth, the resources that you have to do the jobs that you need to do, the things that you'd like to do, but don't have the resources to accomplish. We need to start thinking outside the box. We need to start thinking innovatively. We need to start challenging the status quo so that we can create more resources to build the community that you want and have those resources to make that happen. But one piece within a TERS, it's an economic development tool. It's not going to save the day for everything. It is a performance-driven tool. Everybody talks about this, and normally when I hear people talk about it, they call it a tax abatement. It is not a tax abatement. A tax abatement is an entitlement.
You're out of time. Thank you. Jeff Hutt.
Sorry, Judge, I'm missing a meeting. I didn't mean to be impotent. Jeff Hutt, 2201 Prairie Road. This is like Groundhog's Day in a bad way. 4 times we have been here, 4 times the same cast of characters, basically to a person, have gotten up and they come to you with some scheme about economic development or changing Rockport. You know, the first one was the EDC. Proponents were like, hey, it's gonna be a great thing. Opponents were the loud voices who got shut out, and y'all passed it anyway. And what did we find out? EDC, the EDC only ended up being a method to launder tax-free donations into a C4. The Workforce Training Center is the same thing. The same people about how it's going to be a great job, it's going to be great. It was an albatross across your neck. The courthouse, the same thing. Mr. Salami talked about how the big people need to make the decisions and the little people who don't carry the water, or I don't know, how like they don't know what they're talking about. There's going to be economic development. Folks voted it down, but y'all passed it. The contractor had never done a contract outside of one place except for, but he's friends of the people in this room. So we have a contractor who's screwing up the courthouse and the city hall, you know, and now we come to the same thing about this TERS. Yes, the TERS is going to increase property value in the community. That's why they're telling you to do it. But what they don't tell you is the impact that property increase is going to drive up taxes for the rest of the citizens in Rains County. That's just the way it works. That's the whole purpose of economic development. What you're going to see is you're going to see condos in other parts of the city eventually get appraised. These condos are going to be more expensive because they have government funding. You're going to drive folks out. But if you look at this room, this is a 25-year agreement. How many of y'all are going to be alive to see the end of this? I will be 76. My health is crap. So I doubt I will be around to see it. But so y'all are signing a deal to put on the backs of us. That's going to outlast you. And you talk about being bold and you talk about doing something strong. The hardest thing to do is say no. When all of these people are coming up here and telling you, giving you reasons to do things that will benefit them. I am here only for myself. I'm here for like the families who live here. For me, the best thing about Rockport is the families. I'll be quick, Judge. I'm not doing my time. I'm sorry, sir.
You're doing your time. You have 5 seconds.
Most of the time is the family. Please vote no for this. And thank you for having this. I love free speech. It's Republican.
Thank you. All right, let me go through this paperwork. Before we start, okay. All right, it looks like I got all of them. I do have a couple of emails that are in my packet, so I'm just gonna go ahead and put it in the record. I've got one from Colleen and Larry Harris. They are opposing it on behalf of, or they're acting as representatives of the Koala Family LLC. And then on a personal note, Larry Harris is opposing. And that's all I got, right? Any online? Okay. All right, now we're gonna move on to the presentation, but before so, we're gonna take a quick break. 5 minutes, thanks. Or longer. Hey, Scarlett. Oh, gave it to me.
There are minors.
All right, thank you. It is 9:53. We're going to go back into session. And we have item number 1. Discuss the development plan for the Rockport Harbor front as proposed by Scarlett and Doak Embry. Good morning. I get about 15 minutes.
My presentation.
Yes, ma'am. 30 minutes? Okay. All right. But usually it's 15. All right, so you're gonna give yours, and then Patrick's gonna give his, and afterwards we're gonna do a Q&A if there's questions.
Yep.
Okay.
Commissioners, Judge.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for your time today and for considering the TERS for the city of Rockford and the county. First, I want to preface that the TERS is not about our project. We support the TERS, my husband Doak Embry, and I support the TERS for the benefit of all downtown. But today I'm going to focus on our project. Travis James already explained the downtown TERS to you. There is no development agreement yet. Development agreements are a negotiation with the TERS board. And once the TERS board is formed, we will have a lot of work to do to create and negotiate the agreement. The agreement will be based on the following plans and phases. So I want to tell you a little bit about us first. It has a history of not working. There we go. Okay. About me, I'm an artist, a musician, an entrepreneur, 12-year e-commerce business owner. I grew up in San Antonio, and we had our vacation house here in Rockport. I'm the 4th generation to vacation here with my family. My husband Doak, and this is our home that my parents built. It's not been in the family for years, but that was our vacation home. Doak, my husband, was part of the executive team that scaled a startup tech company, and he left to focus on real estate investments and real estate development. Our experience is mainly in the business and investment side, but we have many years of construction experience together as close apart. We are full-time voting residents of Rockport and live in South Rockport. To complete our team, we hired a fee developer with 30+ years of development experience and over $1 billion in real estate development portfolios and financial modeling. We also worked with the Compass Development Group for market research, site plan, and floor plans. Stephen Levy of Levy Dykema is the architect that we are contracted with, and he is an amazing architect, and he has a development team in his very fast and growing successful company. He was born and raised in Rockport, and he has had a vision for the development of this property since he was in architecture school. And lastly, our project and all of our efforts are overseen by Fineland Diversified Development, which is the Bassel's development team. And they have oversight of all of our plans, and we meet with them on an almost weekly basis. They've been in the site plans with us, making recommendations, working with us on all of the financial advice, and they have been with us every step of the way. This is the aerial view of the property on our walks on Water Street. Since we live in South Rockport, we noticed the property 2.5 years ago. We've done 2.5 years of due diligence. And then we started environmental studies when we finally got the property under contract in June. And then the studies were completed and then in addition to the environmental studies, we completed a feasibility study, a site plan, construction estimates, got bulkhead estimates, downtown drainage estimates, and market studies. So first, I'm going to show you our vision. I'm going to try to run through these quickly because you can see these online, but I'm going to run through our vision and then we're going to talk about some of the numbers. I'll show the site plan and then I will show the site plan at the very end when we take questions. Next slide. Your help here. I'll just tell you when to change the slide. So this is some of the concept renderings I'm going to run through. So this is kind of the look and feel of the project. Boardwalk, restaurants and retail below, and condos above. You can go to the next slide. These are also some of our concept renderings and inspirational photos to have downtown living, dining and nightlife, park and boardwalk, public art, a hotel, retail and shopping, daytime. This architecture style, this is the look and feel of what we're trying to create. So it was very important to me to do something that would be aesthetically nice for the downtown area and work with an architect who has a history here. So we wanted the architect to be quaint and coastal and not be clashing with the historic downtown. We wanted it to not be a historic replica, but we like the historic part of downtown. And we just wanted it to really fit well with the culture and architecture of Rockport. So this is kind of look and feel, retail below, 2 stories of condos above, going no higher than 3 stories. This is another just rendering and images of the living spaces. Our focus has been largely on the public space. It's our priority to provide public vision. We really wanted to do this right. It's important. We feel a deep responsibility to this community to provide public spaces on this property and to have public access to this property that's been fenced off. This is our downtown waterfront harborfront. And so we firmly believe that the public deserves to have access to the harborfront and to be able to enjoy that space. It's been fenced off for 35 years. It hasn't had actual public access for over 100 years. So next slide. So this is kind of a rendering to help you to imagine a park along the water with landscaping and paving and trails. You can go to the next slide. This is our vision of having a pavilion, music pavilion for events, fishing tournaments at the water's edge, at the edge of the park. Waterfront dining, indoor outdoor seating, really bringing the public into the space so that we are not going to be having the condos that face Aransas Bay, everything that faces Aransas Bay. Will have retail on the ground floor. So that really brings the public and invites the public in to enjoy that space. Go to the next slide. And then you can go to the next slide. Also, our vision is to collaborate. We've already had talks of collaboration with the Center for the Arts and placing public art all along the boardwalk. That's a really important cultural piece of our history and part of this community. And being able to integrate the art with the public spaces on the property. And the next slide. This is a rendering that we did for the boutique hotel that would be on the navigation side. We actually do not have an official site plan for the navigation district side. We have a financial model for a hotel. We have plans. But we haven't started our due diligence on that side, but we do have an executed letter of intent to develop that property. So that's kind of the next phase in this. And so the condition of the harborfront is really important to factor in when we're considering the harborfront. So there are a lot of people that probably have not walked on this property and don't understand how blighted and how actually challenging the property is. So you can go to the next slide. We have, if you look here, we have
dilapidated old bulkhead that has crumbled into the water, a meandering shoreline. You have sinkholes that have actually been mapped out on our survey. And you have creosote wood that is toxic and has to be hauled off to Robstown. And we have an underground oil spill from an old gas tank that goes out over almost an acre of the property. That's gonna have to be, the entire area is gonna have to be dug up down to like 6 feet and redo all of the soil there. There's also heavy contaminants that we've discovered, contamination in the groundwater. This is a blighted property. This is a major old industrial site. Even before the environmental company started on their for this, they expected to see contamination because they said that industrial sites always have major problems. So it's also located in a flood zone with low spots that directly cause flooding to downtown. So the project is, the property is a major challenge. You can go to the next slide. You can see in this slide, you can see where the bulkhead is way out into the water from where the erosion has occurred. So, and you can go to the next slide. So this one is upside down. I'm showing you this slide upside down because this is an important slide for you to see. And then go to the next slide, which is the old survey. And you can see on the red, that meant that on the left is that turning basin. The red is the original shoreline that goes all the way to Water Street. And so the reason why this is important is because the new land, everything that we want to develop was bulkheaded out into the water, into the harbor. And it was bulkheaded and filled with dredged material. So that soil is not original ground. It's very unstable. It's gonna be very costly to stabilize it, add fill dirt, and then fill out that jagged shoreline once we do a new bulkhead. But this is very challenging. When the Art Center did their plans and their studies of the soil, they had to do 90-foot piers under the dirt to be able to stabilize and pour a foundation. So you can go to the slide. This is an aerial view of the flooding area, which is from Tropical Storm Alberto. You can see how right to the north of the Art Center, there's the little peninsula that juts out, and that's a very prone area. Water comes in the Art Center and floods the entire downtown. So bulkheading this property is going to be flood prevention for the future for any storm surge flooding. Now, upland flooding and rain flooding is a different story, but for preventing a storm surge from coming into the downtown streets, this is a really important spot. So you can go to the next slide, and you can go to the next slide. So what's possible with the TERS? A TERS is a way to turn this piece of blighted property into an amazing development for the public to enjoy and a tax revenue generating machine for the taxing entities. Our priority, as I mentioned, is public space. We believe the community deserves to have access to it. The residential and the hotel are the main construction buildings that will generate revenue and create those reimbursements that we need to pay us back for the public space in order to get public space reimbursed. So we have to build something that generates revenue. And so we had to come up with, how do we do this first? How do we develop this property in the first place? What's the key piece in making this work? Because the financial model, no matter how many condos we added, no matter what we did to try to change it, the financial model doesn't work without a TERS. There's just too much public infrastructure. So you can go to the next. This is the Heritage District overlay. This is really important to understand that the Heritage District had a plan, I believe it was 2012 that it was designed. And it is very thoughtful of the future of what they wanted to see for this property. And there's a required easement, so what are we required to build? We are required to build a 3,500 linear foot bulkhead and boardwalk with public access along the entire waterfront. So that's a requirement of any developer. It's not just our idea. And then we are required to build multiple streets. We'll have to also build a street kind of along the water line for vehicular access and emergency access. So we have to essentially extend the downtown into this property. This is a major infrastructure project, and it's not a private infrastructure project. This is a public infrastructure project. And so we're required to build all of those streets, any developer is, and that's the main reason why developers have looked at this and said, no, thanks. The cost of that, it's not like building one street. We're building 6 to 8 streets. Well, we're building 6 streets on the Bass Harbor front, another 2 to 3 on the navigation district site, depending on what we plan. And so it is a major public infrastructure. And then it's not a requirement to do the park, but it's our priority to do the park. The park gives public access. The park is going to be a central gathering place. It really opens up the property. And that's my favorite part of it. You can go to the next slide. So some of the investments that we have to do upfront, like I mentioned, are the streets. We have to invest in the bulkhead. The bulkhead is a major hurdle that we have to get past because we have to raise money for phase 1 and we have to put the bulkhead in phase 1 and then the promenade and the boardwalk, which is a 20-foot wide boardwalk that's required. We may even make it a little bit wider than that, but it's required is 20 feet by 3,500 feet. We have to put drainage. So talking about drainage for the downtown, we have to put drainage through the property, not just for our development, but it's for the downtown drainage. So it will drain, it'll connect to the Austin Street drainage. There'll be drainage pipes through the property to drain Austin Street and to drain Water Street. So this is not just public infrastructure on the new part of downtown, but it's public infrastructure that will help with the current downtown drainage problems. You can go to the next slide. So TERS, let's see. Okay, so this is our site plan. I'm going to run through this really quickly and then I can take questions about this at the end and I'll show the slide again. So building number 5 is basically our first phase 1. We'll be doing the bulkhead during that phase 1. It takes over a year to install the bulkhead on just the Bass property alone, but it would be our goal to make sure that our agreement with the navigation district is in place so that we can just do the whole thing all in one project. So that's a lot of investment that we have to do just to get that property and we have to raise the capital and we have to secure our own financing because there is no TERS-based financing with this particular TERS. It's not available since there isn't money in the TERS fund yet. And so we'll be doing building 5 and then buildings 1, 2, and 3. That's just the location of where the townhomes are going to be. There's going to be 3-story townhomes over there. And building 4 is a restaurant. And then over 13, where is the public park with number 12 is that music pavilion. And then buildings 6, 7, 10, and 11, those are 3-story condos with retail below and 2 stories of condos above. And then buildings 8 and 9, those are only 2-story buildings. So that's going to be our primary restaurant row. You know, you can walk along the boardwalk, you'll be able to pop in, get an ice cream with your kids, and then maybe a Mexican restaurant or wine bar. So that's going to be our primary restaurants, bars, coffee shop, or ice cream shop along that row. So the main public areas are going to be in front of building 8 and 9, and then the park, and then the entire waterfront, the boardwalk. But all of the streets are also public streets. So, you know, there's going to be a lot of public areas where you could, you know, have a street party or farmer's market or vendor market, something like that. You can go to the next slide. So this is a slide that is our infographic that describes a little bit about how the TERS will work here. So the existing taxable value, the green, you can just imagine that that's the dirt on the harbor front, what you're receiving now. Those dollars do not change. You're not giving up anything, any percentage of that to build this development. So when we come in, we raise our capital, we secure our own financing, and then we create the new growth, we create the new development, and then you have a 40% of the growth goes to the general fund. You will be collecting that, and then 60% goes to the TERS fund, and then the TERS board will be making sure that the reimbursements are approved, they're paid for, they're built, the infrastructure is paid for and built, and also conveyed to the city. So the city gets this property. So the city acquires all of this. This is a new extension of downtown. And so then once those are approved, then we will get our reimbursements once we're have proven and shown the receipts of what we paid for. So you can go to, oh, and I just want to say one thing. There are no existing public tax dollars that are going to pay us for building condos. This is something that has been sort of spread over social media, that existing tax dollars are going to be given to a private developer to build condos, which could not be further than from the truth. There are no existing tax dollars going towards this at all. And there are no existing tax dollars going towards the reimbursements. They're only going towards public infrastructure. So when we create a new improvement that pays a new tax, there's a new higher tax base above the baseline, those dollars reimburse us for public spaces and public infrastructure. So anytime you hear someone say, we as citizens don't want you to give our money to a private developer to pay for condos, that's completely false and misleading, and it's a legally false statement. So I just want to address that. You can go to the next slide. The legally eligible capital costs are, like I mentioned, the infrastructure, so drainage pipes, seawalls, bulkheads, streets, curbs, boardwalks, sidewalks, street lamps, public park space improvements, landscaping, playscapes, splash pads, park benches, the railing, promenades, remediation of contaminated land. Those are some of the approved legal reimbursements that we're going to be asking for. We are not going to get a single dollar back for any of our condos, our townhomes, interiors of buildings, retail storage spaces, or anything that is income generating. We don't get reimbursed for anything that is income generating. Again, this is just for public space. You can go to the next slide. So why can't it be developed without the TERS? This is really important to understand. No opportunity for development on the harbor front without a TERS. There is no opportunity. There is no interest from other developers, and I'm not bluffing. I want to tell you a little bit about some of the false starts over the past 30 years. So in 2001 to 2004, there was a very thoughtful plan by Lewis Robinson to develop Rockport Harborfront. Whether you liked his plan or whether you didn't like his plan or whether you liked him or didn't like him, he had a very well thought out plan, and it was drawn by the architect Zarin. He was the architect of Beaver Creek. It was a kind of similar master plan to what we have in mind, except for it didn't have a park, and theirs was going to be a little bit more like a historic replica. And the developer went to city council and asked for a TIF and a public improvement district for their infrastructure because he knew that it couldn't be built without it. And it was declined. And this development was prior to the land swap. And in 2003, after the developer had already spent several $100,000, there was a strong opposition group to the TERS effort. And the opponents said development would occur without the public funding of infrastructure and therefore didn't need it. They said, this is downtown Rockport, this is gonna happen. Developers are clamoring to get their hands on this property. It's gonna happen without the TERS. Don't do it. So leadership was pressured to give into the opposition and development never happened. In 2004, Lewis walked away after spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. In 2005, Brett Bone had also had a very thoughtful master plan similar to ours. He said that without a TERS, their numbers didn't make sense. He didn't pursue the TERS at the time, but he was planning on pursuing the TERS. But he, after 2 years and a lot of money, they just backed out and said, these numbers are just not going to work with this property. The Basses even had plans to co-develop it once. I don't have the year, but I've seen the master plan in person. It was a private residential townhome development along the waterfront. They backed out, and their representative, who is our contact there, told me that the project wasn't economically viable because there aren't the tax incentives and support in place to support the infrastructure. The Bass brothers, after that attempt, they agreed to never try to develop it again themselves, but they decided to put it into the right hands, is the way he put it to me, to make sure it would be developed in a way that's good for the future of Rockport. In 2020, Rance Klaus developed a plan that proposed a TERS for the harborfront. Same story, lots of money and time invested. His plan had more private residential development than ours. It was higher density. Aransas Bay was going to have waterfront condos all along the entire waterfront. They did have some nice public amenities, but not really the public, look and feel of what we have. But he still needed a TERS to move forward. The TERS didn't get any traction, so he backed out. And he met with us in 2022 and showed us his plans and all of his work, but he never moved forward. And that's when we started talking to the Basses about. That was around the time when we had early on started having conversations with them. So in addition to the false starts, we have tried to get other developers interested in partnering on this with us. Our efforts to find developers has been very difficult and was very telling of the interest. So talked to Salmon Shores developers. They said the numbers don't work. Their stated reasons for the cost to build the infrastructure, the bulkhead, the low price to sell, and the low rents in the downtown Rockport area. Spoke to 2 large developers from San Antonio. They said, good luck, the numbers don't work. Kings Harbor developer, no interest in moving forward or investing. The Reserve, no interest, good luck. Other coastal developers, they had no interest. We talked to Endeavor, large development company in Austin. We personally know 2 of the principals at Endeavor. We tried to get them interested in it. They said, good luck, numbers don't work. Some of them have come back and said, call me when you get the TERS. They didn't want to do the upfront investment and take the risk, spend the risk dollars like what we're spending. Nobody wanted to do that with us. They said, call us when you get the TERS and we'll have this conversation again. So nobody wants to develop this property without a TERS. All of these developers have developed other properties successfully without TERS. They don't do all their developments with TERSs, but they know that this property has major challenges and infrastructure requirements, and it doesn't pencil due to the infrastructure and remediation. The developers see the requirements of the bulkhead, the boardwalk, the streets, and they say no thanks. Can't make the numbers work by donating $46 million to public infrastructure. Call me when you get the TERS. Basically what we've heard. Developers are not clamoring to get their hands on this property, and every single effort is a huge undertaking. What we've done over the 2.5 years that we've put into this, trying to figure out the puzzle pieces of trying to make this happen and trying to make the numbers work. Every time a developer gets excited about this, it's a huge undertaking and a lot of money and a lot of time spent. And anybody who has been interested in it, it's because they think this is a really interesting and beautiful property and they want to see this happen. You can go to the next one. But bottom line, there's too much public infrastructure required and too much cleanup, and it's not going to happen without the TERS. So all of the reimbursements are for public space and infrastructure. This particular property has major challenges, remediation, bulkhead. The Heritage District design is intended to become an extension of downtown. That is the plan that people have wanted to see over the years, is that this is a new piece of downtown. This is not just a private development. The developer takes on the financial risk. So you guys do not issue a bond. We take all the risk. If we don't build what we say what we're gonna build, then we don't get any reimbursements. And the infrastructure, just want to repeat, it gets conveyed to the city prior to us receiving any reimbursements. So it pays for itself and it's a win-win. You can go to the next slide. So the development plan will be the next step. Once the TERS is formed with across the county, navigation district and the city, then we will bring forth a development plan. The development plan, there's a lot that will happen once the TERS board is formed to the time that we put a development agreement forward. So we have to negotiate, there's costs that we will have associated with that. And there will be, the numbers that we have to dig into. And then we will put that plan in front of the TERS board, and it will include when we're gonna build something and by when, and what infrastructure we're gonna build and by when, and it's an agreement, it's negotiated. And the city and county can collaborate with the developer to achieve specific infrastructure goals and community needs. So if you guys want, some kind of pump upgrades or something like that, then you say, hey, this is a negotiation, we want this. If we agree to this, then you build this. And so that's kind of how these development plans go. So let's go to the next slide. So how do you get from 25,000 per year in tax revenue to 950,000 per year without issuing any debt or raising taxes? Join the TERS and work with developers like us that will be committed to making downtown projects become a reality. The TERS combined with our phasing is how we make the numbers work. For our projections, our project's first phase will start producing tax revenue in 2028. So that's the first year we will collect reimbursements. Hope to be built out fully by 2035. So our full scale reimbursements won't even start until then, which only gives us a shorter amount of time left for the full reimbursements. So that's why we have to have a 25-year TERS with the full reimbursements allowed, including the bulkhead, which is the first big piece of the infrastructure that we have to build. And right here you have 25,722 was from the 2023 taxes paid on this property to Aransas County. That's not a lot of money for almost 15 acres of property. Well, actually, this is the 11 acres of the Bass property. Go to the next slide, please. With the participation, when you join the TERS and we build it, then you will be receiving a tax revenue net benefit when you're adding in all the sales tax that you'll receive and the hot tax, which I actually didn't realize that the county here collects 2% hot tax. But once we factor that in, the county will make 23,868,369. That's a projection. But you're going from from 25,000 a year to once the project is fully built out, 950,000 a year, close to. It's a huge tax revenue increase, and you're not having to issue that debt to create that. You can go to the next slide. So this is just the chart that shows the total tax revenue across all tax entities. A lot of that is actually the school district. And so, but you just see that these numbers, the green bars, the red bars, do not exist without our development. This is what you will start collecting over the 25-year TERS. You can go to the next slide. Okay, in summary, oh, actually, let's make sure I go to the. Yes, I missed that one. So this one is the job creation slide. This is actually a really important piece of this. The development will create over 400 jobs and internships. So about 300 regular jobs, 101 plus internships is what we calculated. This is going to be an opportunity for our kids to thrive in this community. Right now, kids leave and then they don't come back. They leave to get jobs elsewhere. So we're a retirement community. We have a community that is exporting the kids. And so you're not, if you have kids or you have kids that you care about here, as soon as they graduate, then they're leaving and not coming back. And then when they graduate college, they're not coming back here. And this is going to kind of turn the tide for the job creation. We really want to incorporate the kids into the kids culinary program. The kids florist program can help with the hotel. The culinary program could run the pool bar. There are a lot of opportunities even with the public park to have internships and really nurture the kids that grow up in this community. You can go to the next slide. And actually, you can go to the next slide and we'll look back at this one. So in summary, this property doesn't make economic sense without a church. No one wants to do this except us. We believe in the vision and stand for the future of Rockport. By our projections, the numbers work as long as we have the TERS to reimburse the infrastructure. We have to raise the money and make it economically viable to get investors to put in the first dollar. A TERS is not just for our project, but for all of downtown. The TERS is the green light to let us know that Aransas County is ready for this. Once you approve it, we will take the next steps and present our development agreement. We are here, we are ready to do this. Take this opportunity. Everything is aligned here for this project to start. We have the property under contract, but we have strict deadlines that we have to meet and milestones, or we will lose our contract and we will have to choose to whether to pay for extensions or not. And we're not going to do that. We're not just going to extend indefinitely. So we do have to make a decision. We also have a couple of really successful and credible developers who are waiting and have said, if you get the TERS, let's have a conversation. So, this is going to be, we're not doing this on our own. This is a joint effort. We're going to be partnering with people. We're going to be doing the master plan. We're going to be building up our team. So everything is lined up, ready to start this. You have an opportunity to give public access to this historic harborfront, to tear down that fence that has been there for 35 years and kept it from the public. This is for your kids, your grandkids, for the next generation, the high school kids and their futures. We have two potential developers actually I already said that. And we also have an investor that is ready to go in and invest the money. So without it, they walk away. Investors walk away, developers walk away. If our investors walk away, then we won't be able to move forward. So if you believe like I do that it's time for the harborfront to come to life, please join the TERS. This is our downtown waterfront that we're talking about. The community deserves to have access to it. Please take a stand with me for the future of Rockport. So you can go back to the site plan and I'll take any questions that you have.
So can we ask a question?
All right, that'd be fine. Yeah. I got a lot, but I'll let y'all go first.
Has there been any discussion, who will own the bulkhead that you're talking about putting in when everything's finished? Seems like you might have three choices.
Yeah, well, we've had some conversations with Vanessa that they don't want to maintain that. They believe the NAP district should maintain that. So the bulkhead would likely, that's not a final decision at this point, but that's an option.
Or maybe some type of homeowners group that own the property.
These are all conversations that we can definitely have.
Another thing that is in your talk, and I've heard this before, they said the public hasn't had access for 100 years. I don't think that's really accurate. They haven't had access while the bass family has owned it because they put a fence up it. But in years back, the center of the property was owned by the railroad and leased to the Jacksons. There was a shrimp co-op there, there was a machine shop, and there was what was semblance of a road that went all the way to the water, and the people that were there never really restricted the public from going down and whatever, fishing or whatever. So I'd really say that now that where the shipyard was, it was closed off. I wouldn't think that where Jackson's property was, you wouldn't really consider it as being open to the public, but the center that went down the middle of it, there were a lot of people that went down there
Yeah,
sightseeing, fishing or whatever. So it's
yeah.
100 years for the whole thing. It's not an accurate statement.
Yeah, what I'm referring to is back in the early 1900s, there were some hotels. And I believe it was 1916 that, or 1919 that the hotel got destroyed. So there was a pavilion that had music and food and dancing, and then there was there were two hotels. There was La Playa and then the Del Mar Hotel. So that's what I'm referring to, is the public really enjoying the property. Yes, there could have been some public access on that industrial site, but that's what I'm referring to in over 100 years, because it wasn't really a space with public amenities. It was a private property that was an industrial
Other
site.
thing that I'm curious about, okay, the navigation portion is tax exempt, and we'll never get taxes off their property. I'm kind of curious. I think there are probably ways that could be structured where the buildings that are built on that property might not be taxable.
They are taxable.
They are.
So the new one.
I got a little bit on that.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
On all of our properties, the improvements are taxed. The land isn't, because it is of the NAV district, but the improvements are taxed.
Right.
Just like all the buildings around Rockport Harbor, Cove Harbor, and Fulton Harbor.
Yeah.
On the bulkhead situation, if you look out this window when this meeting breaks up, most of you probably haven't seen the condition of what those things look like. And the picture of showing the water intrusion, that's gonna continue, and it's gonna continue to get worse. I was part of the work on the land swap. I had to testify in front of the school land board and give our reasons why this swap made sense. But in the land swap and our negotiation with the Bass family, that's where that boardwalk and that easement or 20 feet that elapse around the whole harbor front came into play. Why I think it needs to be done through a TERS, there's several reasons. The infrastructure that needs to be put behind that bulkhead to support all this is going to be massive. Right now in downtown, in all these old buildings, most of them have little 100 amp services running their little building. Right now, on the boats that's going to be tied there, each one of those boats wants a 100 amp service. There'll be more power going to the harbor than all of downtown right now. So that infrastructure has to be in place, and it has to be put in place at the same time. If you only bulkhead a part of it, Bubba, you know, that water, when it rises, is gonna circle in behind what has and what hasn't, and it's gonna wash out in behind it. The developer that you talked about coming and walking away, that's just the skim of the iceberg. We have people that come in all the time and they're gonna walk the property and see the property. Guess what? After they see it and they know how much infrastructure they have to put in, they all, I guess you'd say, respectfully decline.
Right.
So there's a laundry list of who all has come.
Yeah.
And they all say, when you get the infrastructure put in, give us a call, we'll be happy to. This piece of property is gonna be unlike any other. It's not like developing out on the other side of the bypass when you scrape back some trees and some grass and start building. We have to put the infrastructure in place before anything can happen. We still saw all the people leave from making inquiries. The next thing, when you look at your site plan, once the city closed North Street, which allowed the expansion of the art center, which basically made Water Street a dead end. If any of you go down Water Street, you know it's basically an alley. And alley will not support the kind of activities that's gonna happen down here. So those roads will have to be put in place. I look for a street which is wide enough to handle traffic, and of course, coming off of Market Street, it's gonna take all of that infrastructure to be able to feed cars in and out. It's not just cars with the visitors. You think about if there's restaurants and
Keith,
other industrial things, you might have small 18.
And I'm sorry to cut you off, but you're taking way too much time, way too much time.
But on the.
I get, you answered the question. I think you answered the question.
That section,
Keith.
you'll have to probably maintain it on the bulkhead side.
Oh, y'all are gonna maintain it? Okay.
Most likely, it's gonna have to be a vote, but because we have that easement and because we're going to do the development of the docks.
Okay.
It would probably be logical that we would deal with the bulk.
Thank you. Vanessa has
The city has.
30 seconds.
Maintaining bulkheads, we will be asking them that.
Okay, thank you. Any other question, Jack?
Yes, a couple times in your presentation, you referred to hot tax. It's my understanding, that only Avalon is what we're dealing with here. We're not dealing with sales tax and hot tax. Because that's a whole separate issue.
Yes, it is. So we're not dealing with the TERS, we're not dealing with sales tax or hot tax. I'm showing the net benefit of once you put the TERS in place. If you want to go back, can you?
No, that's all right.
Okay. Okay, yeah, it's not part of the TERS.
We're only dealing with Avalon.
That's right.
Not any other.
And it's not hot tax. We get a 2% venue tax.
Right.
But, all right.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I'm sorry, Commissioner does have to leave at what time? 11:15? I do have, so just to be clear, the contamination, none of the TERS money goes towards the contamination. That's all on you.
The TERS does have the TERS can legally.
They can reimburse for
They
cleanup?
can reimburse for environmental cleanup. That is an eligible expense legally.
Oh, wow.
So is there an estimate of that?
We are waiting for one. We completed our phase 2 environmental testing and the report was sent to TCEQ and I'm expecting it in the next few weeks to get the report back and then we can get some bids for that.
I think at the last meeting, y'all had said that environmental is not eligible for reimbursement.
No, it is, yeah.
Is an eligible expense, but it has to be included as part of the final plan, which is approved by the church.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Was the statement made that because it is contaminated, that is one of the considerations of saying it's a blighted site?
Yes, yes, it is a legally blighted property, and that is one of the legally eligible reimbursable expenses for the TERS, which is, makes sense because that's an encumbrance that prevents development in a lot of sites.
The city of Francis Pass has just gone through that.
Okay.
And they have a really good, feel of what it's going to come out of it. Theirs is a little bit larger than this, took an old refinery site.
Okay.
But they can tell you all the steps. It's not complicated. It is expensive.
Yeah.
You made it sound really bad and really bad sounds really expensive. That's Vanessa. Okay.
It can, but it's also, it's an encumbrance that's preventing development, so we're gonna be asking for that. That would be what we would request.
It's all an improvement. So I guess when the boardwalk's made, the NAV district is gonna take care of the maintenance. You had mentioned about job creation. How many of these jobs are gonna be government jobs? Because we're gonna need more maintenance people in the parks.
Yeah.
Are the parks gonna be city's responsibilities?
Well, they could be. Yes. That is something that would be, what I have envisioned is that we're gonna make that part of the city property. But we would like to get the community involved in the park.
Right.
And have volunteers and have the community come in and take, have a Friends of the Park 501c3 and be able to support the park in that way too. But yes, I mean, it would ultimately go back to city because it would be city property. And what I'm asking about is who's gonna pay for all of that.
Right.
So when we're looking at the general fund, what we're talking about, the 40%, which once it's fully built out is close to $1 million a year for you guys, over $1 million a year for the city. And that's based on pretty conservative projections. There's gonna be money for employing those people. I mean, you're gonna be able to hire more police, you're gonna be able to fix Austin Street. You're gonna have more money in the general fund. It's gonna really help the budget.
So let's go back to the call. So I imagine there'd be lighting. Who would be responsible for the light bill? City?
The lighting is, yeah.
City?
Mhm.
How
Well,
about,
we would build it. We would ask for reimbursements for
right?
it.
Well, I meant the everyday bills,
You're talking about utilities.
utility bills,
Oh, okay.
and then like insurance costs. And are you gonna be asking for reimbursement? Cause on parking, is there gonna be parking garages?
So if that's all negotiable, if you guys want us to build parking spaces for the public and not just what's required for us, like if you want additional parking beyond what is, required and by the city for the retail and the restaurants and all that, we have our requirements that we have to build. But if you want additional parking spaces, like for somebody who's walking down Austin Street and they just need additional parking spaces, that's reimbursable. So that's all negotiable. So if you guys, I know that Vanessa has talked to me, it's really important for her to have extra parking spaces. So we would take those number of parking spaces and we would put those into the TERS, and those would just be extra parking spaces that we built. But garage spaces are 30,000 each.
Okay.
They're expensive. So if we have to build more than what we planned, than what's required by the retail and restaurants and condos, then we would ask for reimbursements. It's all a negotiation.
So if the city wants you to build a parking garage, then it would belong to the city. They'd have to insure it and pay the utilities and everything on it. Okay.
Oh, well, if they wanted to build a new parking garage, yes, yeah, but if they wanted just, additional spaces in the parking garage, that's all negotiable.
That residential versus commercial percentage, I think Commissioner Dupnick asked that question last meeting. Do you have a percentage?
I would have to ask Vanessa, I think it was something like really high, like 20% commercial or something. Vanessa, do you know the answer to that?
What's the question?
So the ratio, the ratio between residential and commercial. Yeah.
Oh, in the project. Oh, I thought you meant the current
No.
ratio.
In the project.
I would have to do the math and calculation on square footage yields, and I'll get back to you.
Oh, okay, all right. That's what Commissioner Dupnick was asking last
You
time.
have the square footage in your presentation here, though, it's more of a breakdown.
Yes.
So it could be calculated.
It can be calculated, yeah. Mhm.
I think a couple of times you mentioned transparency. Is the TERS board subject to Open Meetings Act?
I think so, yeah.
They are.
Yep.
And then, so if you're getting reimbursed with public dollars, and I guess that's a question for legal, does it open them up for public information requests? It does?
Oh,
Okay.
everything has to be transparent.
There are bigger problems with the public dollars and the Public Information Act, but yes, the Public Information Act, everybody's subject to it, technically they're subject to it even now. And all of their redevelopment, all of their discussions and things.
Okay. I think when the last meeting, it was like the number, when you presented the city, it was like 35 million, but you mentioned today it's up to 46 million now?
It's always been 46 million. I think that Travis was maybe
Travis said
taking
that.
some pieces of it, and he was, making the case for 30 something million. Yeah, but it's always been 46 million based on our actual bids.
Okay, and this is just your project. You're not gonna go and redo Austin Street.
No, but the general fund could do that. And then also, if the TERS fund, so remember, the reimbursements don't go directly to us. They go to the TERS fund. And then if there's, excess, or if there's even just more projects contributing to the TERS fund, some of the money out of the TERS fund can be used within the zone for improving Austin Street, but also the general fund, the 40% will have plenty of money to do that.
Okay.
You're using the term general fund, are you talking about the
TERS fund
or the city's general fund? It's a difference.
Yeah, so I'm referring to the 40%. So in the total taxes paid, we'll be asking for 60%, and then the 40% is what is kept. So you'll receive 100%, you reimburse 60% to the TERS fund of your total collected taxes on real property. That's the county, the city on the value.
The increased value.
The increased value, just the increased value.
Do you see any negatives on this project?
Before you, but the 40% that she refers to as the general fund, that goes to either the city and or the county to use in any way that they want. And that's what Mr. James talked about at the last workshop.
That's right.
Yeah.
I was concerned that the TERS was making any request or anything from the general fund after the reimbursement.
No.
Do you see any negatives?
Do I see any negatives?
Everything's positive on is there any, what are your risks
What are my risks? Well, our risks are,
after it's approved and?
yeah, there's a hurricane and we built the infrastructure and then and then we took on all that risk and then, our project gets slowed down, things like that. But, one thing that makes it what I think is a very good benefit to the taxing jurisdictions is they get the infrastructure is what we have to build up front. So that happens very early on and we have to, put that in before we can really start a lot of this the rest of the project. So that is our risk. Our risk is we don't get the reimbursements if our project is slowed down for whatever reason.
And along that line, talking about reimbursement, and the timing of the reimbursement, you say the project is completed. But like with the sewer system, things like that, where there's a tremendous amount of money in materials up front. Is the TERS board going to be able to reimburse for the materials as they're delivered, or that's when everything is done in the first person place?
When it's finished.
It's only reimbursed when it's built and it's approved. And it's approved that the infrastructure is a high quality construction, it's actually built and we show the receipts and we built it, then we can apply for those.
So.
Sorry, I just wanted to confirm that. It cannot be reimbursed until the revenue is generated that goes into the TERS fund.
Right.
So if she builds a sewer line and the value hasn't gone up and there's no money in the TERS to reimburse, she cannot get a reimbursement for that.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
I understand.
So there's no reimbursement when materials are delivered.
Right.
Just because the line is installed and approved and accepted, there's no reimbursement.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
to her point, if she gets all of the public infrastructure in, hurricane comes, knocks it out, they can't build their project, they may never get reimbursed.
Yeah.
Because the TERS has to generate the money before it can reimburse, and she cannot be reimbursed for more than the TERS generates.
That's right.
And that brings up one more question, this will be my last one. Whenever you and I visited the other day, I left with one thing that was not clear, is if the project goes bust, how do we get the money back that we put into the TERS?
If the project goes bust and you wish to terminate your involvement in the TERS at that point, it just goes back as it was paid in. If the project goes bust and you stay in it and there's no other project that develops in 25 years, or the reimbursements don't match the amount that was put in at the end of the 25 years, it's divvied back to the entities that participated.
That would answer my question. I had a question brought up by Mr. Bell, having a bond or something in place to make sure that county entities and city entities, different entities were not left with a burden if it did go bust, but.
You don't need a bond, it's the law.
What's that?
You don't need a bond, it's the law.
Yes, okay, that's, you will get that money back.
Yes, sir.
All right,
Well,
thank
and
you,
you're
Miss.
also not giving us any money up front. There's no money up front. So, yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Kane? Thank you, Carl.
Thank you.
Morning, sir.
Morning, Pat Kane, 1123 East Cedar Street, Rockport. I'm here today to present an opposing viewpoint on the county joining the Rockport tax increment reinvestment zone. But for the record, right, I support the development. It's clear that Embry's have done a lot of work to make this happen. I spent a lot of time, I lived in Washington DC area, spent a lot of time on the waterfront in Washington DC and Baltimore. I've always wondered why, we haven't used our waterfront to better advantage. My disconnect is tax dollars needed to make this happen, and should tax dollars be used? And I don't think those points have really been discussed, not in the city workshops. And I'm going to call them workshops, not in the city meetings, because they really weren't workshops where they allowed all sides to be heard. So I do appreciate the commissioner's court allowing an opposing view to be presented. And that's all it is. It's a different view, right? Developer stated the county, yes.
Sorry to interrupt, but just to let you know, I had an appointment scheduled several weeks before this workshop was even scheduled. I had no idea it would be this long.
What's your call?
11:15, sir.
Okay, well, I will be done way before that.
Right.
So the developer stated last week that the county would increase tax revenues without the county taking on any risk. They are taking on significant risk, but that doesn't mean there isn't risk to the city and county. Right, so just as an example, sometimes expectations aren't met, right? You're given a sales pitch and things happen with the economy and you don't realize the expectations. Well, that happened in Odessa, 2018. They created a TERS to improve their downtown area. It was disbanded 5 years later, and the only thing they had to show for it were public funds were spent on studies. That was it. There's, just a month ago, the Houston mayor said there's been abuses in the TERS. Right, as my brother spoke, there's opportunity for fraud to happen in the TERS. I'm not saying it would happen in this TERS. This TERS was just established, right? But there is a possibility for that to happen. And now what Houston's having to do is they're having to spend their general fund dollars to do a deep audit on all of their TERS. So it's a significant expense out of their general fund. So that's a risk. The other part is TERS regressively redistribute the property tax burden. When you transfer funds to the TERS instead of the general fund, you're leaving municipal expenses to be paid for by the other entities that are not in the TERS, right? And I keep hearing, well, this will generate 40% that you don't have. If the city can then provide services on the rest of the city at 40 cents on the dollar, then I can reduce my taxes. The reality is they can't. They have to charge 100 cents on the dollar in the rest of the city. So there's no way, just logically, it passes the test that the city can provide services in this TERS area at 40 cents on the dollar. You can do the math. I've done the math. It doesn't add up. It doesn't pay for the new public employees. It doesn't pay for the maintenance, for the streets, the sidewalks, the lamps, the water play facilities, et cetera. That's not really your issue because hopefully the NAV district take care of the waterfront and the city will take care of the streets and stuff, and you don't have that expense. But when people say that TERS doesn't create a burden on the other taxpayers in the county, that's a lie, right? Because here's a study that says, and logically you can get to that same result. Why is the project being brought forward today? And I think Ms. Embry did a great job describing the difficulties. And Keith Barrett got up and spoke to the land swap. So we were told at the last workshop, property's been vacant for 35 years, and without a TERS, this will remain vacant. I don't know that that's a true statement or not, right? None of us in this room, outside of the Embrys, have seen the financial analysis that says this project is doable or it's not doable. We don't have that data in front of us to make a decision. But what we do know is it took a land swap in 2015 to bring disparate parcels together so they could do this type of development. Right, so that's pretty recent. That's not 35 years ago. That's not even 10 years ago. And in that time, what has happened in the last 10 years? We had a hurricane, we had COVID, right? And we had an economy that had run amok. The Embrys have been working this for the last 2.5 years, right? And so I'd say it's somewhat encumbered. They have the project under contract with, or the land under contract with the Bass family, and I have a letter of intent with the NAV district. Right, so really, it wasn't until recently that could be developed, and the economy and other things have prevented it from happening. Time is right now. Next slide. I think you really should, ask your legal counsel whether you should join a TERS that is legally suspect. Texas tax code allows a TERS to be created when a development or redevelopment would not occur solely through private investment. All right, that's in the law. Yet we had the Ms. Embry state, if our planned development doesn't happen, other developers will try to get a hold of the property. All right, and so really what that leaves is that the property blighted, right? Is someone not going to be able to develop? You can go down the street, not too far down Business 35, and you can see the islands of Rockport as an example. We have a developer went in, paid for his own streets, paid for thousands and thousands of feet of bulkhead, much more than what this project requires. And he did all of that without any taxpayer contribution. And now the county's receiving 100% of the property tax for that property. You didn't get that development. So developments with bulkheads at developer expense, right? The people that are buying the lots out there, they're paying for the cost of that improvement. Just as the people that are going to buy the condos or the retail space should pay for the cost of that. Right, that's the free market. To make this TERS happen, the city designated downtown as a blighted area. But in my brief, really, right? This is what the Houston study showed. Yes, we're not Houston, but this is what the Houston study showed that I referenced earlier. TERS are generally created in the areas of higher income, right? Not low income. If we really wanted to chase a TERS, let's go down Business 35. Let's go down South Rockport. Let's develop the Market Street corridor. They're more blighted than what the developer called in their own presentation, Rockport's premier downtown waterfront pond. If you look at the criteria that the city put in the ordinance, tell me an area in the county that probably wouldn't apply. I mean, there's some exceptions, Key Lake Country Club, pretty much you can use that criteria anywhere. So I really don't think saying, well, this area is blighted, it'll never be developed. It's truly accurate. There's other areas in our county that would benefit. And I think second is saying, well, it's blighted, so therefore we need public investment. That would apply anywhere else. Throughout the Copano Code. How many homes out there have no bulkhead? Their land just slopes down into a canal, right? Other people don't want it back sand out. The blighted was also the reason the citizens sued the city of Austin over the designation of one of their TERS, and they won in court. That TERS had to be set aside. So what's needed to spur downtown development? The pitch we were given several years ago was a $60 million investment in the downtown anchor project. Right. We also had a great and wonderful new arts center that was paid in large part by donations, but also by grants. Okay, so we've now made this investment in downtown, right? So what is the proposed Rockport Marina Village? Is that the development we were promised? Is that our return on investment for the $60 million of taxpayer funds? Right? Or is it what is now needed to spur, which you heard several times today? We need this project to spur downtown development. Well, I guess last project didn't count $60 million plus. Well, then once this project happens, we need another project to spur downtown development. I did enjoy the brief from the developer that talked about what was done on South Padre Island. And the land, I can't remember the pass that cuts through there. I've been down there. I enjoy that area as an outdoors person. You got to look. There's a tremendous amount of potential of vacant land out there. Right? There's not much left in downtown Rockport. This is our return on investment for downtown anchor project. I put some numbers down below. It's simple math. I pulled the numbers from the 2024 certified totals from the appraisal district. The TERS value, as we've been told by the city, is $29 million. The overall tax base for the county is $7.2 billion. So they represent 0.4% of your tax base. And so I like to use the 250, join the lotto pool. Everyone put in a buck. Now we hit the lotto. The person that took the ticket, that went and bought the ticket says, well, I want 60% of the return, right? And the other 40% or, which is 200 and the other 249 people are sharing 40% of the return. The county should be, all county citizens should be deriving the benefit of the downtown Anchor project investment. The project is bringing other development. Now that development's here asking for a tax handout. Don't give them the handout. Keep the money for all county citizens to benefit. Earlier, others have said, hey, downtown merchants overwhelmingly support the TERS. It's their tax dollars that are going to be impacted, therefore they support it. Well, the reason they support the TERS is because you just saw with the numbers, they disproportionately benefit from this investment. Okay, what are you being asked to approve? I think the Q&A kind of leaves it, up is you really don't know what you're being asked to approve. It was said several times today, this is about you joining the TERS. This isn't about you approving this project. Right, well, for the record, the city at their workshop presented both the TERS and this project together. You just took an hour brief about this project as your reason to join the TERS. So for all intents and purposes, when you make the decision that you're joining the TERS, you're in this project. And you saw the ask, it isn't the $36 million, it's now apparently 46 million, right? And really the ask is going to be much greater, which I'll get to in a second. And because that's such a big ask, the reality of the TERS is going to do all these other wonderful things downtown. That's not going to come to fruition. The city's going to be in a contract with the developer for them to give them the largest portion of the TERS funds upfront, right after it's been earned, right? They have to earn it. That's why the developer is taking a substantial amount of risk. But it just doesn't leave money for all these other wonderful things to be done downtown. So what have you seen given 2.5 years of by the developer? You don't have a draft developer agreement, and yes, I know that follows. However, they've been working this 2.5 years. The TERS is on the table now. For $36 million of public investment, I would think you want to know how much of that $36 million is for environmental remediation. How much of it is for bulkheads, right? We're trying to solve the storm surges from pushing in. Maybe you can do that for $5 million, right? So you don't know what you're being asked to pay for. Are you being asked to pay for streets? Any other developer in town pays for their own streets. It is public infrastructure, but it's done on private property. And the developer hands it to the city or county, so they're no longer responsible for maintaining it. But every other development in town pays for their public infrastructure. So you don't really know what you're being asked to pay for, and your 36 million or 47 million or whatever the number turns out to be. You don't, still today, we don't know the percentage mix of retail versus residential. Y'all did say it's in the brief, you can run those numbers. You don't want to run those numbers because it's 80% residential. That's ignoring the hotel because the hotel isn't in there. If you run numbers and make an estimate on the hotel, maybe it's 67 to 70% residential, right? That's not moving the needle. Mayor J. Rose said, we need this project so we can shift the burden off of the residential taxpayers. This project does not do it. It does not do it. You've asked the question twice, not been providing an answer because the project doesn't do it. Now, could the project do it? Yes, if they change the design, right? It could do it, right? Are they likely to? No, you need a residential to push the commercial, right? The retail doesn't happen unless you have enough residential to make it happen. But going forward under the assumption it's going to solve our residential problem, it absolutely does not. What are the plans for the remainder of the site? I do appreciate Ms. Embry said that, hey, we've only detailed the 10-acre Bass property and they've had significant expense to them, right? And they haven't shown you the hotel, but you're being asked for money that includes the public infrastructure that goes to the hotel, and yet you have no details on that. So I really don't know what you're being asked to approve. And then what are the developer's qualifications? And again, we received more info today. The Embrys aren't really the developers. They're looking to bring a developer in. So you don't know who the developer is yet. So what are you being asked to contribute? And I've kind of hit over this a little bit. The city's consultant showed your contribution would be $6.5 million, maybe more or less, because tax rates will vary, valuations will vary through the years. If you add up the numbers that were on the the read ahead, right, it looks like the numbers changed on today's slide. It was 19.3 million on the developer slide. That was the ask for their development. I'm gonna say it's gonna be more, right? And I say that because of two reasons. One, the city values the base at 3% a year, right? I wish my property taxes, my property valuation has only gone up 3% a year since I bought the property in 2019. It's gone up much more than that, right? And they didn't include any other development downtown for the next 25 years, right? So if the downtown anchor project spurs development, if this project spurs development, other things are going to happen downtown. That is going to be additional money kicked into the TERS at 60 cents on the dollar, right? And none of that's shown today, right? So your contribution isn't going to be 16.5 or 19.3. It's going to be much more than that. And can the county really afford to give those dollars away? So I want to explain the appreciation on existing properties because I hear this stated incorrectly all the time. The base is frozen for 25 years, right? So your property taxes you collect today on the base will be, assuming that the tax rate doesn't change, is the same that you will collect in 25 years. The dollars in 25 years aren't worth what they are today. You're losing money. The numbers work out at 3% a year. 29 million becomes 60.6 million by year 25. Right, if you just run those numbers, that's you lost 1.2 million from your general fund. That's not a lot over 25 years. But the point is, every dollar of appreciation on the base goes to the TERS at 60 cents, at 60%. Now that's not the Embry's asking that. That's what's in the state law. It's a flawed law, right? But you just need to understand that that's what's happening when people say, well, the existing tax base isn't impacted. Yes, it is. Right? Let's look at the reality of what it is. I'd also say, is the ask a fair deal for the county? I don't know what the numbers are going to be, but I'm going with what was shown on the city consultants chart. 16.5 million investment for the county and 18.3 for the city. It's not a lot of difference. Yes, there's difference, but just I'll say for an almost equal investment, what does the county get? You get no vote on decisions. Yes, you get some votes, 1, 2, who knows? That's not decided. By joining the TERS, you have someone on the TERS board, but you have to recognize the TERS board is advisory only, right? The decisions will be made by city council. That was stated today, and it's been stated previously by the city consultant. You get 1/2 the sales tax revenue for the general fund. I should have put an asterisk there because I don't like to be accused of misinformation. And oh, by the way, for the record, I am a Republican, despite someone's comments earlier today. And you will notice throughout my brief, I provide you the references, right? My credibility is extremely important to me. There's a shitload of misinformation out on the web, and it's not put out by me. My brother kind of finds the gray area, but his isn't misinformation. I can tell you there's a whole lot more misinformation being pushed by the pro-TERS crowd than by myself. All right, so the city gets 1 cent on the sales tax. The state keeps the most. City gets 1 cent. County general fund gets 1/2 cent. And the county also gets another 1/2 cent, but that's for health services. That's a restricted fund. It's not going to pay for other things in the county. So that's why I say you get 1/2 of the really usable sales tax that the city does. And you're also not going to get any recurring revenue for a marina or a land lease, right? And today, now I'm thinking part of the expensive cost of the bulkheads and stuff is because we're going to put 100 amp service to each of the boat slips or something, right? Why the heck would the county be paying for that? Right, so you don't get that recurring revenue. The NAV district does. So if you look at what the ask is, city and NAV district get a much higher benefit dollar for dollar than you do, right? And so, someone that likes to keep my dollars and spend them wisely has got to ask, is that a good investment for you? So some other options I would like you to consider. First and foremost, realize the TERS is already created, right? The city has a TERS. Project says they can't move forward without a TERS. They have a TERS. Project can be moving forward. So I say punt and let the free market decide what gets built downtown. If it's not affordable, it won't happen. If it's only partially affordable, then you still the project moves forward. So I put it in here, getting 100% tax revenue on a 50% project is still more money than a 40% revenue on a 100% project. You still have the whole upside potential of when the rest of the property gets developed. Right, so don't buy into that. If you don't participate, it won't happen. That property is too valuable to continue to sit vacant. It's only in the last 10 years that it's really been in a position to be pushed forward. And even if it isn't developable under this, then look at the next option, right? Limit your contribution. Right, so if you're getting half of the benefit of the sales tax, and Ms. Schroner spoke at the prior workshop and said that this project is about generating sales tax. Right, so if that's what this project's about, limit your contribution to half, because that's parity with what you get to the city's sales tax. Or pick the things you want to do. If you believe environmental remediation falls within a county responsibility, then put your money into environmental remediation. Say you want details before you agree to anything. Right? I mean, if I'm sitting here wanting $10 million from you, I'm gonna give you the details that you need so I can get that $10 million. Right, so you can limit your participation in the TERS. Ms. Schreiner just spoke to that earlier. Say, well, we will assist with the environmental remediation. And here's our contribution, whatever that contribution is. Because that is a legitimate cost, right? The developer has to do that before they can put people on that property. Now, many developers pay for that themselves, but maybe the numbers don't work. Right, but you could pick and choose. Maybe you want to do park improvements, the playscapes, the splash pad. Right, so everyone in the county can benefit from those. Pick what you want, make that investment. Right, you don't have that data in front of you today, but before this, y'all meet again, you can ask for that. What is the $47 million ask, right? And pick and choose what you think the county's contribution should be. That's all I have.
Thank you. I think Nueces County is 80-20, where 80 goes to the county.
Yeah, right, different ratio.
All right, I got Miss Adela, Assistant County Attorney Martinez. She has some.
I have a question for you, Commissioners. Commissioner Russo, I did hear your comment that you have to leave. I can give you an answer whether or not the county can legally do it for written, or did I tell you today, or both, or have another workshop?
Both.
We might need another workshop because I also have an attorney's opinion that it's very legal for a county to participate. But I do not have time to talk about that with anyone. Sorry. Thank you everyone for coming today.
Thank you.
I will say one thing. There was a meeting scheduled last Thursday evening. I found out about it at 6 o'clock. The meeting took place at 6 o'clock. And I already had other plans. During that meeting, it was mentioned that if I was in favor of this, I must be in the developer's back pocket. I'm not in anyone's pocket, front, back, or coat. When I first heard about this project, the TERS, not this development, just in June, I didn't really know much about it, but I thought, I don't really think so. I don't really think I like that idea, but I will educate myself. And that's what I have done over the last several months. Do I support this TERS? Yes. Do I support this development plan? Yes. Do I think it's critical to our county, not just the city, not just the NAD district, our county, to have that waterfront property cleaned up? Yes. My husband used to be a hydrogeological engineer and worked with the EPA Superfund for years, cleaning up sites. We need to think about getting that cleaned up just as soon as we can. So thank you for coming. Sorry to leave.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you.
If there's gonna be another workshop, would you prefer that I present there? Do you write it? Do you want me to tell you today?
I think both. Write it and then just tell it today.
Okay,
If you, you offered.
yeah,
Okay.
yes, sir.
Okay.
The law says that a county may participate in a TERS. So that is in the answer of whether or not we can hypothetically participate, that answer is yes. However, I believe that there are other further restrictions that you must also consider. I am only the attorney for the county, I'm not the attorney for the city, but what I have to say does affect municipalities in general. It is my belief that this county cannot enter this program. For several reasons. It's not about support or not support. It's not about do we want development or not want development. That is not my role. That has been delegated to you as the Commissioner's Court to make decisions on behalf of the county. That delegation of authority comes through our Constitution. My role is legal compliance. Legally, the Constitution is very clear, the statutes are very clear, case law is very clear, and Attorney General opinions are all very clear that if the Commissioner's Court has any kind of sovereign authority, it came from one place, and that is the legislature. The legislature has said, we're going to give away some of our power to the county. And when it goes to the county, it goes to its duly elected, all 5 members of the Commissioner's Court. If that authority has been delegated to the Commissioner's Court, it can only be delegated away by express written statute. Right? So that's the first thing. You have sovereign authority. This is the TAC handbook that talks about what the sovereign authority of the Commissioner's Court is. There's 58 pages, single spaced, of just like a rough estimate of what it is that you can and cannot do. Right? You have broad authority to make the best decisions for the county. That includes your money. Right? Your money. It's not our money. It is only public money. So let me start there. The law tells us how the Commissioner's Court can spend money. And that law comes from the Constitution, from the statutes, and from case law. So the public purpose test governs every single penny that comes in and out of this county. You can only spend money according to the law. But also the step 1 of that public purpose test is, does it serve a public purpose for the local governmental entity? Second one, does the local governmental entity retain control over that money? Third, what is the public benefit received in return from that local governmental entity's investment of money? So if all 3 parts of that 3-part test are not met, money cannot go out of this county. It just can't, right? Whether you get money from taxes, whether you get money from a grant, whether you get money from a donation. The only way that it goes back out into the world is if it meets that public purpose test. So you cannot delegate your authority, and you can only spend money according to the law. Those are the 2 biggest things for this particular project that I don't think that you're able to do it. It's not that you can't be in a TERS. That part is settled, that's in the law. The county may. But whether or not this county may enter this project is, in my legal opinion, is not allowable. First of all, their ordinance is already written. So, in their ordinance, what's written is that, and in the law, section 311 of the tax code, all the money that goes into this project has to be spent in the project zone. So the money that goes into that fund has to be spent there. The county does not own any property in that zone. The public infrastructure, per the presentations you've been handed today, will be dedicated to the city. So the county will not own any of this in the future. However, all money that goes into that TERS must be spent there. So you are sending county money. If you were to agree to enter it, you would be sending county money where you can't meet that public purpose test because it's not being spent on county infrastructure whatsoever. They said very plainly, everything that we build goes to the city, doesn't go to the county.
Question, is it now Navigation district property, county property.
No, navigation district property is navigation district property. Now, we lease stuff, for example, this building. But we have like a 30-year lease from the navigation district. So once we build our aquarium, that would be an improvement. That taxable increase would have been, but it's based on an improvement, right? But it's still nav district property. Because they own the property. However, you would be committing county funds to a TERS that you cannot meet public purpose part 2 of the test in that you don't retain sufficient control. You will have a board member, possibly 2, we do not know. Regardless, in the ordinance as written, and as told to you today by other people, this is an advisory capacity only, but in their past ordinance, it very clearly says the board is not authorized to issue bonds, notes, impose taxes, fees, exercise the power of eminent domain, give final approval to the final project plan and reinvestment zone financing plan. Who gets to do that? All of the said powers are reserved exclusively for the city council. That's not you. And so I don't believe that you can put county money legally, that you cannot put county money in the control of someone else. In fact, I know that you can't, for a fact. You can't give your sovereign authority away. You can't let someone else make these decisions for you because your sovereign authority is decision makers for the county via your elected collective decisions. You collectively and alone have discernment to make decisions on the best interest of the county. You can't give away that right. You can put it in an ordinance which would not be legally enforceable. You cannot give away your sovereign authority unless the legislature tells you that you can.
If we don't agree with something the city is doing, and I think some of that stuff in Odessa, you know, you talk about it broke apart because of disagreement in entities. But by same token, if we were totally against what the city is doing as a county board, we could withdraw from the TERS, is that correct?
Just to be clear, she's referencing the city's ordinance, you have to pass your own ordinance.
And ordinance can be changed.
And I believe, I'm not a lawyer, but I think it should be checked. You're not giving away your sovereign authority that you can participate in the TERS and contribute your money as part of the TERS according to chapter 311. Your money can go in there and you don't give away your sovereign authority when you do that. But the ordinance she's referencing is the city's ordinance. You have to pass your own ordinance with your own standards and qualifications in it. Now, it's gotta work across the board, but you cannot pass an ordinance that says, I'm gonna put a cap of, we're only gonna put $16 million in the TERS, and when 16 million is done, you're out. Or you gotta come to the city and say, you want 2 members on the board, and we say yes, no, whatever, you put that in your ordinance. You put in your ordinance that you're gonna participate at a 50-50 split instead of a 60-40. You get your own say in your own ordinance, so our ordinance is not your ordinance.
To be clear, even if you pass your own ordinance.
Order. We don't pass ordinances, right? We pass orders. Okay. Just,
I'm responsible.
I know. I was just
So-
clearing it up. We pass orders.
If you were to do that, this tiers board is subject to the city council.
That's right, because the county cannot legally create a TERS.
I'm sorry?
I said, I'm sorry, you're right. It is subject to the city council because the county in itself cannot create a TERS. Only a city or property owners can create a TERS. They can participate, but the county cannot create its own TERS.
I would disagree because we go back to 311 that says the county may
Participate.
right? So, but also there's 71 tourist programs created by counties across the state of Texas.
I think the legislature gives them the power to create a TERS. It's the
They're
legislative.
They
Right.
have the power to create them, is my point.
right.
Does the legislature, that they enable each county individually to create that?
That's, yes,
So they're going before the state legislature, and they gave that county specifically.
right,
One at a time, not as a blanket.
right.
Okay.
Right, so we cannot, for whatever the county passes in and of itself, it cannot dedicate the very same property and have its own board reporting to the county. So like the only way that the county is gonna be involved in this particular one is for the county to join it. For the county to join it, you are giving away your authority over how this money is spent. But on top of all of that, to set that aside, what is concerning is that Chapter 2267 of the government code, 2254, 2253, 2269. Local government code 252 and 262, all the way through 271. All of those define what public infrastructure is, what public projects are, what qualifying projects are. There's definitions outside of 311. That is important because every public infrastructure work must be competitively bid according to the rules of the RFQ and the RFP. Period. So on top of that, whoever is doing work and presenting work to you now before something is like provided, they could be disqualifying themselves from doing the work in the future.
Like us to consider, maybe at some point, not to take anything away from you, but to find, and maybe through the county attorney to find a advisory attorney who's an expert in county law, maybe with this.
You need to get a hold of him.
I mean, we find and support some different things, but I would like to get, if I have medical, something done medically, I want a second opinion. And I would, I would like to find if there's an expert of some type that could advise us as a court.
I think we need to get an opinion from Jim Allison. He's tax attorney and he's done these things before, I'm sure. And, get the specifics there. And if Allison, who's had 50 years of experience and done, I'm sure been involved in most of these, says we can do it, I think we can do it. He says we can't, then that needs to answer that question too.
Judge, would you be willing to contact?
I'll contact.
I would caution you, Commissioner, that this is a workshop and you're not allowed.
Yeah, we're not.
We're just,
Do official.
we're not doing, I would just, no, I'm apologize. I was just trying to say that I think we need to, it is a workshop. I'd like to just express that. This is a critical step, one way or another.
So are you saying you don't want me to continue the analysis or write the paper for you?
Sorry.
Because what I had told you is that I'm prepared to present, sorry, I'm talking back, should stop.
You're prepared to go contact somebody?
No, she's gonna write,
No, sir, I'm
Statement.
prepared to do your legal analysis,
Okay.
but if you
In
don't
writing.
want me to,
No, well, I'm saying that again, I'm gonna reference, if I was going to my doctor, he says I need to do this and that, I'm gonna find somebody who's maybe more versed in something that's real critical surgery or something like that. And I can appreciate I'll be glad to see what you have, but I would like to see it, and then maybe we may have to get some clarification. Because here's one thing you're saying this chapter, this chapter, this chapter. I'd like to see something concise from your opinion.
you can't do it.
I can't.
No, I mean, that's as concise as I can get. But I can write it out. I understand what you're saying. I understand you wanting to seek a second opinion. I'm happy to write you the first opinion for your consideration. I can, it doesn't mean much if I hand you this stack of papers and say, here you go.
Exactly.
Alternatively, what I would write you anyway would be sufficient for an attorney general opinion request. I'm happy to do that too. They do not, attorney general requests are limited in that they will not determine something to come up with a fact conclusion of, yes, you can do it, no, you can't. What they'll say is, you should talk to your legal counsel, or you can make this decision subject to review by the district court. But whatever I put in here, I'm happy to send on and say, is this the correct legal analysis? Hypothetically speaking, they would return a response for that. So I mean, I'm happy, like I said, happy to give you a first opinion.
I like to see a concise, yeah, your concise opinion, because when we're talking, you're saying this, that, a lot of different things, it's like.
Yep, there's plenty of different ways. I do believe that this is a very, I don't want to use costly decision, that's not the right word, but a lot of money is at stake, so I would prefer that you have the best information in front of you possible to make the decision that you're ultimately.
Exactly, this is a
gonna be on
critical
your shoulders.
decision, because, just as I think Mr. Hutt referenced a while ago, most of us, or a lot of us in this room that were in previously are not gonna, see the full, the finalization of this development plan, maybe as far as it goes, and but it's a critical step we need to make sure, because any decision this court makes really is for the future of this community, whether it's the county or the city, and every what's been on my mind is every person, every taxpayer in the city, every citizen in the city, they're also paying county taxes, they're part of the county. And whether it's the city of Rockport or even the city of Fulton, any decision we make, it does.
Our rents expense.
Yeah,
got 900 in rents.
yeah, that's what, exactly. I mean, any decision made, but everybody in Rockport, they keep saying about Rockport benefit or whoever might benefit. But the city of Rockport is supported by county taxpayers. The navigation district is supported by everybody in the county. So it's a critical decision we made. I'd like to get some concise, as much concise information as we can from you.
I'm gonna let Ms. Martinez finish and then, yeah.
You can stop there if you want me to write something anyway. And then, like I said, it does not bother me to have as much information in front of you as possible. I've got a list of 8 attorney general opinions I can send you today. Obviously, in keeping with the Open Meetings Act, don't reply to those. But I can more than happy to write you something at the next workshop. Be prepared to present that if the commissioners were prepared.
That'd be fine, but I prefer if you finish, like,
Okay.
you're on the road.
Well,
Yeah. If y'all are good with it, unless, okay, all right.
right, so Texas Constitution, Article 3, 52A prohibits the use of public funds or the granting of public funds or anything of value really to an individual association, corporation, or individual entity. So that prohibition on power actually starts with even the legislature can't give a governmental entity the ability to give away public money. Right, so what sovereign authority you do have is very closely guarded regarding public funds and the spending of public funds. Right, there are things that you can do. If I were to finish this whole thing, I actually think the county could be more supportive of the TERS without joining it. Because the county is likely gonna be the one to go after grant funding or whatever kind of other things that we normally do through our various agreements with federal organizations and state agencies. I think that that's actually the better way to support the commissioner's court retaining its control over public money. Because it has to meet that public purpose test at all times. That's part number 2. Does the governing body of the local, of the governing entity, do they retain control over their money? I think you could be more supportive by doing things outside of the tiers, or whatever you wanna call it. Because you would retain that control over your money all the time. We already have very established, connections with people, with organizations on how to do, environmental projects, on how to do, drainage, roads. That's part of your sovereign authority anyway. So you could be operating right in the middle of your authority and supporting this and supporting the citizens of Aransas County at large and the people who are in Rockport, because they're your constituency too. But also, like, some of the things that I guess I am unclear about, it's my understanding, all of that property is private property. There's an absolute prohibition on any public funds benefiting a private entity, unless it meets a public purpose test. So if they're saying nobody's been on that property for 30 years, 35 years, whatever number of years, well, it's private property, I don't have to let anybody on my property. Right? And the Attorney General has also said, by its very definition, private property means that you retain the right to exclude other people from being on your property.
By them creating the public streets, public boardwalks, all that, does that property become public property at that point?
It only becomes public property once they actually dedicate that public property. What they have stated is that they will dedicate a certain amount of property to the city. So it's public in the sense that it would one day belong to the city, but it doesn't belong to the county.
Can I ask you?
Yes, ma'am.
It will be, first of all, it will be dedicated to the city. It will be conveyed to the city prior to getting reimbursement, so it will become public property. Anything that's reimbursed will become public property before it's reimbursed. So we're installing public infrastructure. That's the only way that the TERS works. That's how you accomplish public infrastructure through private.
City public property.
City,
Correct.
yes, city.
City.
It's conveyed to the city.
City.
Which is in the county.
Which is in the county.
Which is in the county.
Right. But not
And
county.
the county collects taxes in the city. Yeah.
Okay,
And
I'm sorry.
then I also want to really clarify, we are the developers. We're the master developers on this. We have been looking for different co-developers to co-develop, different components like the townhome development, but we are the developers on this. And then the other thing I wanted to clarify was my statement about the 20%, 80%, that's existing, is what I think I heard Tim J. Rose say, that's existing. So we're planning on building about 85,000 square feet of retail and restaurants and commercial space.
Thank you.
Right now, it's private property. And what people choose to do with their own private property, whether or not we would like to see it or access it, it's still private property. They're 100% within their rights to do whatever they want to do on a private property. And I bet if we were to turn this around, if someone came to your house and said, well, I've always hated your yard. And I think you should match it to Commissioner Cheney's, because I like his baby. Like, I mean, you would have the right to say, this is my property, get off my property, right? Because that's what we enjoy once we own something. But also, Commissioner Kesherling, you made a comment that at one time there were streets down there. It doesn't matter if it's all the way back to 1900. I would be curious to know what happened to those streets, what happened to those plaques, because what's created, they exist forever.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was a dedicated public road. My thought, just thinking back over it, somebody could have applied for prescriptive easement. It was used so much by the public.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't fenced and all that kind of stuff.
Well, even if it's a paper street, it's still a street. And so if that's the case, it might actually already be owned and have to go through a separate set of approvals.
I hadn't looked at any of that, so.
Yeah, meaning it wasn't until you said this was for forever ago.
Yeah, when I was growing up, I was in there all the time. you know, it was both.
Correct, so like.
Now, that
even-
was on property that was actually owned by the railroad at that time.
Okay. Yeah, railroad ownership is different from regular property ownership.
Yeah.
But if there were streets, those might already be there, and that would require various approval to do anything for streets that are already platted anyway. In general, the short answer is, yes, the county can make a TERS. Yes. Yes, the county can join one. Yeah, that's in the law, right? It's the specific to whether or not this particular tax investment and reinvestment zone, increment reinvestment zone, whether or not this particular one is allowed for Aransas County to join it as written, as going forward. Whether or not you can do your own ordinance, it matters specifically to this one. Because the answer is already yes, yes, you can do something, but whether or not you can do this one, that is a separate legal question.
So if we had the ability to vote the use of our money and the city had the right to vote there, that type of situation might be legal.
It's that once you join this one.
I'm not talking about that, I'm talking about maybe there's ways you could reconfigure it.
I have not found a way where it can be the same area. Where two governmental entities can both be together. And retain the same amount of control. I have not found that in any part of my research. They talked about the ones in Corpus Christi, Nueces County is not a member of those.
That I verified they are.
No, it's not, they're not posted anywhere, you have to.
You're right, it's not posted.
Yeah, so there's one that was in 2022. That Nueces County itself was gonna do for Tesla batteries. I need to follow that one up further. I don't know if it ever even got off the ground. But as far as that, yes, a county can be involved. Yes, a county can join. Yes, a county can make one with probably that delegation of authority from the legislature, right? But if the question is this one.
Can we were to go this route, with the car supporting it, could we, in our order, create an order that basically says that money will be reimbursed only once properties have been deeded over to the city?
That's the law already. That's already the law.
It's ready, but if it's been deeded to the city, the county would be spending county money on city property. And that's prohibited by law. So I, like, that's why I'm saying for this particular one, not generically speaking, for this particular one, I don't believe that Aransas County can legally. These are separate questions that do you just generically have the ability versus this one is written and that's dedicated. And so obviously, yes, to those first two questions. It's my legal opinion that no for this. As in this particular one, not generic, this particular one. I'm happy to put it up in writing and said, if you want to seek the opinion of the Attorney General, I'll write that letter myself. If you want to pursue anything else, I would just recommend doing it at a regular meeting.
No, I'd just like to see something in writing because it's, when we're speaking, you're referencing this chapter, this, whatever. Those are all those numbers, start jumbling everything together. I'd like to just be able to sit down and read something and go through something from that standpoint. I'd like to say, no, it's just when you start rattling off stuff, it's like when they do presentations. If you have something kind of go along with it, you can absorb it better and understand it better.
Absolutely. I will post that to you if we have another workshop. I'd be happy to hit the highlights on that one too there.
Thank you, Ms. Adele. All right, any other questions for anybody else? All right, motion,
Just one real quick one.
yes, sir.
If we can't do it as a member, can we do it under an interlocal?
That's very, okay,
Well, let's not discuss that right now, because we're not prepared for it. But that would be a question I'd have. If we can't be a member, can we do it under an interlocal like we do all kinds of different?
I do have an answer though. Like I said, if we did not join. We could probably be supportive of it in other ways with a lot fewer restrictions. One of those is an interlocal agreement. Because we are allowed to have an interlocal agreement with the city or with any of their advisory boards. Obviously ours would be the city and their advisory boards would be the answer.
We give money to the fire department.
Correct.
We don't have a special fund for that. It all comes out of the general fund or everything.
You have sovereign authority to do that, though. But yes, if you wanted to.
That's right.
Yes, if you wanted to, in yet another way of being very supportive without joining an interlocal agreement would exactly be that. We would enter an interlocal agreement for anything if we did for drainage or flooding, or environmental clearance. If we did not join, we would have a whole bunch fewer restrictions. And I believe you can meet the public purpose test very easily on all of those. And that's how money could flow to areas that need the county's attention. Doing this, you're restricted to one way. An interlocal agreement is absolutely an alternative that I would recommend.
Good question. Thank you. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Got a motion in a second.
Commissioner Castleline?
Aye.
Commissioner Russo? Commissioner Dupnick?
Aye.
And Judge Garza?
Aye, we are adjourned. Thank you all. Thank you very much.